Chapter 55. They had to eat lunch every day. Finally, they found a safe place to rest. Xiaoqing got off the car with her people. When they walked inside, a tall man with a crew cut kicked the iron gate. Xiaoqing and the others were startled, especially the unprepared little bun, who went straight into Xiaoqing's arms. Xiaoqing stopped. The temperature in her eyes suddenly dropped. Her long nails popped out in an instant, but before she could do anything, they were caught by Yan Hanqing. Yan Hanqing shook his head at Xiaoqing. After all, it was not the time to turn hostile. Although they were confident that they could wipe out the Gale squad, there would be casualties on their side. It was not worth it. Xiaoqing suppressed her anger, but her face was still cold. She stood at the door and did not go in. She said in a faint voice, "Captain Lin, why don't we split up?" Lin Xiaofeng's face was also a little ugly. His team members did not listen to him, and ran to Xiaoqing's team to show their strength. It would be strange if he was happy. "Captain Xiao, the danger of splitting up is too high. If two teams stay together, in case of any trouble, we can help each other." Lin Xiaofeng tried to salvage the situation. Xiaoqing smiled. "Help? Captain Lin, you must be joking. I'm not being aggressive. If we stay here, I can't guarantee that I won't do anything to your team members. I think your team members think the same. It's best if we split up. It's good for you, good for me, good for everyone." Cheng Jiao saw that the members of the Gale squad were about to rebel. In order to calm them down, she hurriedly said, "Since Captain Xiao said so, let's split up." Lin Xiaofeng was really embarrassed, but he did not say anything. After a moment of silence, he said, "Anyway, let's talk about it after lunch." Xiaoqing shook her head, turned around, and left with Yan Hanqing and the others. When they left, they heard the Gale squad's unrestrained cheers. "Sister Qing, are you leaving just like that?" Gu Panpan's eyes widened. She was very indignant. How could such a group of people become a level 3 team? The heavens must be blind. "Why are you staying for dinner instead of leaving?" Xiaoqing glanced at Erdai calmly. Erdai immediately understood what Xiaoqing meant. After running a little further, he howled. Zombies had their own way of communicating with each other. Erdai's shout just now was to gather the nearby zombies. How could he just leave like that? At the very least, he had to give them a small gift so that they could put in more effort. Now Gu Panpan could only cover her mouth and laugh. Xiaoqing got in the car and led Gu Panpan and the others all the way to the shortest but also the most dangerous road. On the other side, people were celebrating. Each one was more excited than the other. Cheng Jiao came over and said in a low voice, "There's a lot of resentment down there. It's not good to let them hold it all the time." "Don't be angry." Lin Xiaofeng didn't say anything. He just sat there alone sulking. He was angry about two things. In fact, he had always noticed that his team members were becoming more and more arrogant. However, there were some things that he couldn't say, so he could only remind them indirectly. However, it was useless so far. They wouldn't change until they suffered losses. Second, the Gale squad's members almost ignored his words about Xiaoqing's incident, which made him very embarrassed. After all, his authority as a team leader was useless. Not to mention that their team had thoroughly offended Xiaoqing's side this time. While the Gale squad was discussing when Xiaoqing's team would be wiped out by the zombies, Xiaoqing and the others had found a small supermarket to have lunch. After entering the supermarket, they quickly cleared the zombies in the supermarket and were ready to eat. The supermarkets near the city gates had already been almost emptied out. Gu Panpan, who refused to believe it, searched one more time. She only found a packet of plums, a packet of ham sausages, and a few umbrellas. They had all been cleaned up to the point that they couldn't be any cleaner. "Sister Qing, if we go to the city center, should we find a few big shopping malls and see if there are any supplies that can be moved?" Gu Panpan could not help but ask. Xiaoqing sat on the ground and looked at the road map. The nearest road was said to be the most dangerous one because they would pass by several shopping malls, a high school, and countless residential areas. While looking at the map, Xiaoqing said, "There are too many zombies in those large shopping malls. Ordinary search teams and paranormal squads don't dare to go in. So I think the larger shopping malls near the city center have well-preserved supplies." So Xiaoqing's implication was that they should go there. After all, it was on the way. When they finished searching the shopping malls and arrived at the city center building, the Gale squad would probably still be on their way. This time, our income will definitely not be small, Gu Pampan vowed. She had already imagined the scene of resources rolling in. Don't take it lightly. Although ordinary zombies don't dare to attack us, there must be a lot of mutant zombies in such a big city. We still have to be careful in case of a sneak attack, Xiaoqing said without raising her head. The biggest advantage of their squad was that Xiaoqing's instructions and orders would be carried out very well, and there would be no scenes of overt compliance. There was a saying, "Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate." We will remember. Gu Pampan nodded very seriously. They had been with Xiaoqing for so long, so they still had this awareness. Xiaoqing nodded and used a pencil to circle some places where she thought there might be high-level mutant zombies. Although she was not afraid, she didn't want to see any loss, or even one of her team members injured. Naturally, the safer the better. The others sat down to eat. Since they knew that Xiaoqing didn't need to eat, they were used to eating while Xiaoqing watched them eat. Roar! The roar of zombies came from afar. Xiaoqing closed the map and raised her head to look at the direction. She couldn't help but smile. They seemed to be members of the Gale squad. After finishing their meal, they went out and were surrounded by zombies. That pile of zombies was enough to make them suffer. At least, they didn't have the energy to plot against Xiaoqing. Chapter 56. After a leisurely meal, the group set off once again. This time, without the Storm Ability user squad, Xiaoqing and the others were free to collect the crystal nuclei. The specific pattern was like this. Erbook restrained his aura and squatted on the roof of the car, in charge of finishing off the zombies and collecting the crystal nuclei. Gu Pampan was in charge of driving. Every time there were zombies that didn't have eyes, Xiaoqing would let the vines wrap around the zombies and pull them closer. Then, Gu Chuan and Yan Hanqing would use their abilities to get rid of the zombies that couldn't resist. Maintaining this pattern for the whole afternoon, Erbook collected a plastic bag of crystal stones. When the sky was a little dark, Xiaoqing and the others found a safe place to stop and rest. A group of people cleared the space and came out. They gathered in a circle and began to divide the loot. Most of the crystal stones were put in Xiaoqing's space, leaving some to be absorbed in case of an emergency. The next day, after walking for the whole morning, Xiaoqing and the others arrived at the first zombie-dense place. It was a school. When passing by the gate, they could see zombies in guard uniforms wandering around the school. Roughly estimating, there were at least 1,000 zombies in the school. Don't forget, this was a key high school before the apocalypse. There were more than 2,000 students, plus the colonel's staff, nearly 3,000 people. Excluding those who escaped alive, those who were completely eaten, and some zombies who left the school, there were at least 1,000 or 2,000 people left. Xiaoqing looked at the school with envy. How many sparkling crystal stones were there? At present, Yan Hanqing had just become a level 2 paranormal, and the others were in the middle of level 2 and level 3. They needed a lot of energy to fill up. Even she was in the stage of accumulating energy. When the energy was full and couldn't be increased, it would be time for a breakthrough. Right now, ordinary zombie crystal cores were of little use to Xiaoqing. A pile of zombie crystal cores could only provide a small amount of energy. She needed high-level zombie crystal cores. The school was so big, and there were so many zombies. There must be a lot of level 2 and level 3 zombies. They were all high-grade crystals. Yan Hanqing looked at Xiaoqing's expressionless but bright eyes. He couldn't help but say, "We are not in a hurry. They will definitely arrive at the city hall much later than us. It doesn't matter even if we arrive a little later." Xiaoqing's bright eyes were like 2 small light bulbs. Looking at the wandering zombies in the iron gate, it was like looking at sparkling crystals. Why don't we go in? Gu Pampan was also very straightforward. Alright, maybe we can get more high-level crystals. Just pile them up and I'll be able to reach level 3. Xiaoqing fixed the little bun on her back, found a safe place to park the car, and sneaked in with a group of friends. Before going in, Xiaoqing reminded them again and again. Once you encounter danger, don't fight. Just retreat. We are here to make a fortune. It's not worth it if we get injured or something. Gu Panpan rubbed her hands and said, Got it, Sister Qing. Where should we start? The dormitory building. Xiaoqing considered and then said. They went to the dormitory building. The male and female dormitories were close to each other, and there were a lot of wandering zombies nearby. Ordinary zombies didn't have intelligence. They were dominated by hunger. Zombies couldn't feel full. If there was enough food, they would keep eating. Even if they burst their stomachs, they wouldn't feel full. The higher-level zombies were much smarter. Although they were still dominated by hunger, the higher-level zombies had some judgment ability. The level 3 zombies knew how to fight and ambush. Xiaoqing wasn't interested in these ordinary zombies, but the higher-level zombies were hidden in the crowd. Even if she looked carefully, she couldn't see any difference. Only when she started to fight could she tell which one was the higher level. So they started to clean up the area. Yan Hanqing's electric power was very useful. He was now working hard to train his control, trying to use the least amount of power to paralyze the zombies. Then, Gu Panpan would be responsible for killing the zombies when they were paralyzed. This kind of cooperation saved a lot of energy and physical strength. After all, there was a limit to one's power. If it was used up, it would be used up. They had to wait for it to recover before they could use it again. Yan Hanqing was only level 2, so how many power could he have? This was the same principle as a poor person calculating how to spend money. Every coin must be used on the blade. Here. They were in groups of 2, hunting zombies not far away. Once they found a higher-level zombie, they would call their friends over and kill it. At this time, Xiaotong played a huge role. Although she usually didn't talk and just ate or played with Little Bun, she was actually training her spiritual power all the time, especially her ability to control her spiritual power. Every time they found a higher-level zombie, Xiaotong was responsible for holding up a spiritual shield and bouncing the surrounding zombies away, leaving only the higher-level zombies. Then the other friends would focus fire together. It couldn't be better. Chapter 57. Their teamwork was getting better and better. Some were in charge of controlling the zombies, some were in charge of attacking, and Xiaotong could be said to be an absolute defense for a short period of time. Their close-range and long-range attacks were absolutely perfect. After counting the crystal stones, Xiaoqing was very satisfied. Ignoring the ordinary zombie nuclei, there were dozens of level 2 and above ones. The dormitory building was almost cleaned up, and the majority was in the teaching building. After cleaning up the teaching building, Xiaoqing might have more than 100 high-level zombie nuclei in his hands. Of course, among these 100 nuclei, most of them were level 2 zombie nuclei, but even so, it was definitely a big fortune. With an excited mood, Xiaoqing and the others went all the way to the teaching building. There were obviously a lot more zombies in the teaching building, and the density was at least twice as high as in the dormitory building. Xiaoqing and the others also encountered 2 rare spiritual-type zombies. When they arrived here, it could be seen that zombies were generally physically strong, but spiritual-type zombies were not far from being mentally retarded. Therefore, spiritual-type zombies were simply too rare. Spiritual-type zombies were generally weaker in terms of physical strength. Just like the big-headed baby zombie from last time, it was attached to a big, strong zombie. This was also a kind of cooperation and coexistence. The 2 spiritual-type zombies that Xiaoqing and the others encountered had their own small groups. They were relatively difficult to deal with, but they were still killed by Xiaoqing and the others. The 2 crystal stones naturally fell into Xiaotong's hands. The feeling of hunting zombies in such a dense place was like stealing vegetables from someone's farm. That feeling could not be described with just one word, especially when there were more and more crystal stones in his pocket. There was a feeling of becoming a winner in life. After cleaning up the first and second floors, Xiaoqing did not prepare to take his companions to the 3rd floor. Everyone's abilities were almost used up. If they went up again, it would be bad if they encountered any danger, and some of his companions got hurt. People should not be too greedy. They should know when to stop. However, those who were not content were like snakes trying to swallow an elephant. They would all end up being stuffed to death. They went down the teaching building, but before they reached the flag position, There was a sudden scream accompanied by Xiao Tong's spiritual power shield. The vines were like a group of wandering snakes, quickly extending in all directions. Xiaoqing fixed her eyes and saw a zombie in dirty professional clothes climbing up from the ground. It only had half of its head, and the other half had been cut off diagonally by something unknown. A part of its skull had been cut off, and one could still see its slightly wriggling brain. However, this wriggling wasn't because its brain was still alive. Instead, it was because there were maggots crawling around inside, making it look like the brain was wriggling. The zombie's rotten face was covered with a pair of broken glasses. It was hard to tell how the glasses had survived until now. It seemed like this zombie was a teacher when she was alive, but now she was just a zombie. What level is it? Gu Panpan couldn't help asking. Xiaoqing frowned and controlled the vines to swing at the zombie like a whip. The female zombie grabbed the vine whip and pulled it crazily, breaking the vines. After testing, Xiaoqing's face was a little pale. It's at a higher level than me. Now we are all exhausted and don't have much power left. It's not suitable for us to fight with it. Let's go. Xiao Tong immediately held up the shield, and the group quickly withdrew. The female zombie was faster. Like a cannonball, it hit the shield. Although it was bounced back, Xiao Tong snorted and fell into Xiaoqing's arms. The level gap between Xiao Tong and this zombie was too big. She couldn't stop it at all. I'll cover you. You take Xiao Tong out first. Xiaoqing said calmly. Under her command, the vines danced wildly as if they were alive, preventing the female zombie from approaching. No, you want to stop it alone? Don't you want to live? Gu Panpan widened his eyes and said angrily, we'll go together. Gu Chuan, take her away. Qing, I'll cover you. Yin Hanqing tried. His ability didn't do much damage to the female zombie, but it was still possible to make her stiff for a moment. It shouldn't be a problem for him, and Xiaoqing to stop the female zombie for a while. Why are you fighting? Gu Chuan was very calm. Erdai must stay. There are zombies outside. If we go out, we will be attacked. It's better to stay and fight. Let Erdai take Xiao Tong to the car first. But would Erdai leave? He wouldn't leave Xiaoqing behind. Everyone knew this clearly. Xiaoqing had made them so angry that they were about to die. Why was it that each of them was more disobedient than the other? Stay here and drag. Before Xiaoqing could finish her words, the female zombie had already broken through the defensive line formed by the vines and rushed over at lightning speed. Chapter 58. The strange thing was that the zombie didn't pounce on Xiaoqing or Yin Hanqing first. Instead, it pounced on Gu Panpan, who was standing aside. Gu Panpan was still using her superpower. Seeing this, she was startled and subconsciously punched out. However, it was Gu Panpan who was sent flying. When she activated her special ability, her body's toughness was very high, but she was still sent flying and broke the pillar at the entrance of the teaching building. Xiaoqing was really frightened. Her vines wrapped the female zombie into a cocoon in an instant. Gu Chuan ran over to check on Gu Panpan. Fortunately, Gu Panpan was a tough woman. She coughed up some blood and climbed out of the ruins. She wiped the corners of her mouth and said, "Damn it, it almost flattened my chest." Gu Chuan, who was worried about her and ran over, was speechless. High speed, high defense, and high strength. Xiaoqing felt that the big cocoon made of vines was constantly being hit. She quickly calculated the fighting power of the female zombie and said, "No, if we were in our heyday, we might be able to fight it. But now we can't beat it. It's not easy to retreat." Yin Hanqing looked at it worriedly. Then he saw that the green cocoon suddenly exploded. These vines were formed by Xiaoqing's superpower. Once they were destroyed, Xiaoqing would also be implicated. She felt a tightness in her chest and a taste of blood rose to her throat. However, the female zombie who broke out of the cage turned around and rushed to Gu Panpan. As soon as Gu Panpan climbed out, she screamed, "Oh my God, did I offend her? Why is she coming to me again?" Then Gu Panpan was sent flying for the second time. This time, she directly broke the glass door of the teaching building and flew into the teaching building. The female zombie didn't even look at Xiaoqing and the others. It seemed that she was determined to kill Gu Panpan and chased after her. Yin Hanqing suddenly had an idea. Just now Gu Panpan killed the most zombies, right? Xiaoqing thought about it and nodded. Although she and Yan Hanqing had used vines to control most of the zombies, and Yan Hanqing had used lightning to paralyze most of the zombies, the one who had killed the most was Gu Panpan. Air Dai and Gu Chuan couldn't catch up with Gu Panpan, whose eyes were full of zombie nuclei. Xiaoqing instantly understood. You mean? Well, I think that a level 4 zombie is very likely to retain a certain level of consciousness. It was a teacher when it was alive. Maybe it was a very responsible teacher. It didn't leave the school when it reached level 4. It is very likely. Yan Hanqing frowned and analyzed. Xiaoqing immediately continued. You mean it is protecting the students who have become zombies in the school? So it is crazily attacking Gu Panpan, just because Gu Panpan killed a lot of zombies? Yan Hanqing nodded. Xiaoqing also felt that this answer was very reliable, so she nodded. I think it is very likely. Let's give it a try. Gu Panpan already wanted to cry. She didn't understand why the female zombie liked her. It was as if she had stolen its man. She didn't want to let go. Just when Gu Panpan tried to get rid of the zombie many times, but to no avail, the zombie suddenly roared outside. The female zombie was originally chasing Gu Panpan happily, but it immediately gave up on Gu Panpan, turned around and ran outside. Gu Panpan was dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, it looked like it wanted to die with her. Now it fell in love with someone else? The female zombie directly jumped down from the second-floor window. With an angry roar, it rushed towards Yan Hanqing, who was killing the zombies. Yan Hanqing didn't want to fight. He ran towards the gate while constantly releasing lightning to kill the zombies on the way. Chapter 59. Sure enough, the female zombie was mad. She roared and followed them. At this time, Gu Chuan had already left the battlefield with Xiao Tong and Xiao Bao. Air Dai mixed in with a group of zombies and quietly approached the female zombie. When Yan Hanqing was infinitely close to the door and the female zombie was infinitely close to Yan Hanqing, a huge flower head suddenly drilled out of the ground. The position of the flower was very clever. The place where it drilled out was right under the female zombie's feet. Without saying anything, it opened its petals and swallowed the female zombie. The corrosive venom in the flower's petals immediately poured on the female zombie, as if it didn't cost money. The female zombie was roaring because of the corrosion. Yan Hanqing turned his head and gave it a lightning, paralyzing the struggling female zombie. Xiaoqing didn't stay idle. After she finished with the female zombie, she controlled the man-eating flower to secrete digestive fluid. She also knew that the man-eating flower certainly couldn't digest the female zombie, but before it struggled out, half of its body's bones and flesh were completely destroyed, which was still possible. Feeling that the female zombie inside had begun to struggle violently, and when the man-eating flower couldn't hold on any longer, Xiaoqing controlled the man-eating flower to open its mouth and spit out the female zombie. The female zombie looked even more terrible now. Its body was covered with a strong corrosive liquid, and there was a burning smell accompanied by smoke. The clothes on the surface of its body were almost corroded, revealing the slightly rotten body underneath. At this moment, there were white bones everywhere. When it moved, pieces of flesh would fall down. At this time, the female zombie was in a state of madness. As soon as it was free, it roared and rushed to Xiaoqing. Xiaoqing waved the vine in her hand like a steel whip. The barbs on the vine all stood up, shining with a cold light. She didn't aim at the female zombie, but at the surrounding zombies who were attracted by the sound. She was very clear that if this whip hit the female zombie, it would at most make her lose a few pieces of flesh and break a bone. It wouldn't leave any fatal injuries. But if it hit the ordinary zombies, it would definitely result in several deaths. As Xiaoqing expected, the female zombie gave up on her and turned to the vine whip. It seemed that it was trying to destroy the vine whip of the students who wanted to hurt it. The female zombie was very fast. It successfully caught the vine whip a second before it fell on the zombies. Before it could destroy it, Air Dai suddenly jumped out from the group of zombies. It didn't care about the corrosive venom on its body, and hugged the female zombie. The female zombie was obviously a little confused. Its limited intelligence didn't let it know what its student wanted to do, but its body reaction was to break free. But it couldn't because the vine whip in its hand, it suddenly softened and wrapped around its body like a rope. At the same time, Erdi's sharp nails pierced through the female zombie's eyes and directly into its brain. When it was screaming in pain, Erdi had already grabbed its head and crushed it like half of a smashed watermelon. High-level zombies had strong recovery ability. As long as their heads were still there, they wouldn't die. Although low-level zombies didn't have recovery ability, they could still bite people when their bodies were broken into many pieces. But no matter high-level or low-level zombies, once their heads were crushed, they would really die. Xiaoqing couldn't help but sigh in relief, but her heart was unspeakably complicated. A zombie, full of obsession to protect its students. But what about human beings? Chapter 60. Xiaoqing felt that the reason why this zombie could evolve to level 4 at this time was not because of anything else, but because it had an obsession in its heart, and those obsessions were its students. The strong desire to protect was probably the driving force for it to evolve to level 4. Just like Xiaoqing, it was Little Bun who supported her, and now it was Erdi and the others. Now Xiaoqing suddenly felt very lucky. Although she and her son had become neither human nor ghost, if that thing didn't happen, that scumbag might do something else in the future. It was very possible that he would work with the mistress to poison her and her son, and then help the mistress get promoted. Unfortunately, it was also fortunate. At least now she had seen through his character, and could still live peacefully with her son, which was a great fortune in the midst of misfortune. Erdi was holding the crystal. His cheeks were still stained with dirty blood, and there were corroded wounds on his body, but he happily ran over and handed the crystal to Xiaoqing. His pupils were very dark, but the color was very beautiful, especially when he looked at Xiaoqing with sparkling eyes. It always made Xiaoqing want to touch his hair. Xiaoqing finally couldn't hold back, and rubbed Erdi's hair, and then said softly, "Let's go see how Gu Panpan is doing. Let's leave this place first. There are too many zombies here. Who knows, maybe another level 4 or 5 zombie will jump out." Yin Hanqing went to see Gu Panpan. Gu Panpan was indeed a tough man, and when he came out he was still very lively. After the group of people gathered, they left the school. Now almost everyone was injured. After returning to the car, Xiaoqing put the crystal in front of everyone. The level 4 zombie crystal was as big as a pigeon's egg. It looked like a piece of crystal, especially when the sun shined on it. The light it reflected was particularly gorgeous. It was hard to imagine that this was something taken out from the corpse of a walking corpse. Everyone knows that zombie crystal nuclei don't have any attributes, except for some special ones. In other words, this crystal can be absorbed by all of us here. Now we need to discuss how to distribute it. Xiaoqing said seriously. There was a saying, even blood brothers have to settle accounts clearly. They looked at each other, and Gu Panpan said first, "I think we should give it to Sister Qing. First, Sister Qing is the strongest among us. If we give this crystal to her, she will become stronger, and we will be safer when we go out for missions. Even in the base she will have more say. Second, when we killed that zombie, Sister Qing contributed the most, so she should take it. Last but not least, I like Sister Qing. If I also have a share of this crystal, I am willing to give it to Sister Qing." Gu Chuan said lightly, "I second that." Gu Panpan immediately said with a wretched face, "Brother, which part do you second? I like Sister Qing?" Gu Chuan turned his head expressionlessly. "What are you talking about? We are discussing something serious." The few of them still managed to see his slightly flushed earlobes, and the side of his face. Gu Panpan hid to the side and snickered. Yin Hanqing and the others didn't even need to ask about their thoughts. Xiaoqing didn't pretend to be pretentious. She just took out all the crystals she got today and gave everyone a share. She didn't take a single one, only the level 4 one. "You guys are the ones who suffer losses. If we get something suitable for you in the future, I will give you back." "Okay." Gu Panpan put away his share. They all knew that if he didn't take it, Xiaoqing wouldn't take the level 4 one either. After dividing the loot, they returned to their respective cars. Those who needed to apply medicine did so, and those who needed to change their clothes changed their clothes. Then they packed up and continued to move forward. In fact, Even if they went back to the base now, this trip's harvest was enough. But they still had a mission, so they couldn't give up halfway. But this time, they didn't run to the place where the zombies were densely packed. Instead, they went to their destination. After all, adventuring once was enough. If Xiaoqing was alone, she would definitely go everywhere, but now she had a group of friends. Even if she wanted to take risks, she had to consider her friends. She couldn't gamble with the lives of her friends, so safety was the first priority. The city was too big, and the road was full of zombies, so they walked slowly. When they arrived at the city hall, it was already the afternoon of the next day. Looking at the traces, the Gale squad hadn't arrived yet. Xiaoqing immediately made a decision. We won't go in tonight. Let's stay outside for a night and see if that group of people is coming. A school is so dangerous. The city hall is definitely not simple. Of course, everyone agreed. They found a safe place where they could see the entrance of the city hall, and prepared to eat and sleep. Of course, the night watch was Xiaoqing and Dai. Little Baozi couldn't sleep either, so he rolled around in Xiaoqing's arms. Little Baozi ate a lot, such as crystal stones and some nutritious food. He could kill Gu Panpan and Gu Chuan in one meal, and he didn't stop eating. Usually, when he walked on the road, he would hold a crystal stone. However, he didn't grow. Little Baozi looked the same as when he came out of Xiaoqing's belly. He didn't grow at all. Except that his little face was a little chubbier. This made Xiaoqing very distressed. Before, she was glad that little Baozi was 3 heads tall when he came out of her belly, which was much easier to take care of than a baby. Now she was worried that little Baozi's body was damaged because of the car accident and other reasons. Otherwise, why didn't he grow? However, Xiaoqing was distressed for a while. After all, it was her first time raising a baby, so she didn't have much experience. She thought that maybe the baby was so slow at the beginning. They spent the whole night with Little Bun and Dumbo competing to see who was cuter. The next day, when they got up and had a full meal, they saw the members of the Gale superpower team coming in late. Moreover, quite a few of them had injuries on their bodies. They looked a little battered. The few friends who didn't like the Gale squad saw this scene, and were very happy in an instant. We are happy to see that you are not doing well. Chapter 61. The Storm Ability user team was indeed in a very sorry state. Even Lin Xiaofeng's arm was wrapped in gauze. Gu Panpan stuck her head out of the car window and whistled. We've been waiting for you all night. If you hadn't come, we would have gone in to take a look. The Gale squad members' faces turned ugly. They looked down on Xiaoqing's team. However, not only did Xiaoqing's team not suffer any casualties as they had imagined, but they also arrived at the city hall without any injuries. Looking at Gu Panpan sighing and clicking her tongue, their faces turned green with a tinge of black, and then a tinge of purple. Xiaoqing got out of the car with a smile. You must be tired after walking all the way. Do you want to take a rest before going in? Lin Xiaofeng was about to speak, but a member of the Gale squad said, No need to rest. Why do we need to rest in such a small place? Lin Xiaofeng's face darkened, and the veins on his forehead throbbed. He said angrily, You are the leader, and I am the leader. Are you the leader of this squad or am I the leader? That member didn't say anything and lowered his head. Lin Xiaofeng took a deep breath and said embarrassedly, We'd better take a rest. But we lost the food we brought on the way. Xiaoqing smiled faintly. We brought a lot of food. If you don't mind, come and eat with us. The Gale squad lost their food when they were escaping. They were all injured, so they didn't dare to go deep into the large shopping centers to look for food. The small shops on the roadside had been cleaned out when the apocalypse broke out, so they had been hungry for a day. Even those who didn't like Xiaoqing and the others could only shut their mouths at this moment because they couldn't go against food. Xiaoqing turned to Yan Hanqing and asked him to cook more food. Gu Panpan couldn't help but pull Xiaoqing and whisper, They treated us like that, and you still want to give them food? Sister Qing, you can't be a good person. They will never be grateful to us. Xiaoqing smiled. Do I look like the kind of person who likes to be a good person? Then why? Gu Panpan asked in confusion. Prisoners on death row can still eat their last meal before they die. Besides, we're going to use them as cannon fodder. If they don't eat their fill and have no strength, How can they be qualified to be cannon fodder? Bu Qianlong smiled. All right, don't think too much about it. Go help Hanqing cook. Suddenly enlightened, Gu Panpan ran to help Yan Hanqing. Yan Hanqing still had some rice left, but there were at most 2 bowls left. It was definitely not enough. He heated up some steamed buns and dried meat, and cooked 2 simple dishes. As soon as the food was served, the Gale paranormals began to eat like a hurricane. Only Lin Xiaofeng and Cheng Jiao were left with good manners. Lin Xiaofeng ate very elegantly, but he ate very quickly. Soon he was full. Sitting next to Xiaoqing, he asked curiously, "Do you bring cooking utensils, oil, salt, sauce and vinegar with you when you go out?" "A few people in my team are all foodies. My son is growing up, so when we go out on a mission, we have to bring cooking utensils and ingredients," Xiaoqing said calmly. Lin Xiaofeng was a little speechless. He didn't know what to say, but he was quite clear about one thing. Xiaoqing was definitely hiding her strength. Every time a paranormal team went out on a mission, their heads were hanging on their necks. It was not easy to go back alive. Who would care about food and drinks? Only those who were more relaxed and confident dared to bring cooking utensils, and vinegar. What's more, didn't the fact that they arrived at the entrance of the city hall earlier than them prove their strength? He was afraid that the team members would think that Xiaoqing and the others came here by luck. They would rather die than believe that they were strong. Lin Xiaofeng really didn't want to be enemies with Xiaoqing and the others. "Ha! How can you say that?" Before one of the Gale paranormals could finish his words, Cheng Jiao stuffed his mouth with a steamed bun. "You can't even shut your mouth with rice. Do you want to use a knife?" The other team members were also silent. They were already embarrassed to talk. How could they have the nerve to say that when they were eating other people's food? Lin Xiaofeng was a little embarrassed. In fact, they don't mean any harm. They just don't think before they speak. Xiaoqing smiled. It's okay. People like them are more straightforward. Who would argue with cannon fodder? Bickering with cannon fodder was the same as bickering with dead people. She felt that she was quite generous, so she was ready to forgive them. When the Gale paranormals were full, Xiaoqing considerately brought some bandages and the like over. "Change your bandages. There will be a fierce battle when we enter the city hall later." Lin Xiaofeng thanked her and then distributed the bandages. Cheng Jiao took the bandages and changed them for him. The cloth on Lin Xiaofeng's arm had been stained red, and the outside was still dirty. Cheng Jiao wrapped the cloth around the wound, revealing the blackened wound underneath. The wound was still bleeding with pus. It was obvious that it had been poisoned. The recovery ability of paranormals was much stronger than that of ordinary people. If it weren't for the poison, Lin Xiaofeng's wound would have started to scab. Xiaoqing still had a lot of medicine in her hand, but she didn't want to give it to Lin Xiaofeng, nor did she want to help Li Xiaofeng. She just watched Cheng Jiao wash Lin Xiaofeng's wound with water, then asked, "Did you cut off the rotten flesh around the wound? It's not good for healing." Cheng Jiao shook her head. "It's useless. I cut it off when I was poisoned." At that time, the red flesh was exposed, but it didn't take long for it to become like this. Cheng Jiao washed Lin Xiaofeng's wound with water many times. Then, she took out a dagger and cut off the rotten flesh. Just as she said, the red flesh was exposed, and the blood that flowed out also turned red. Cheng Jiao poured some powder to stop bleeding and bandaged Lin Xiaofeng's wound. After that, Cheng Jiao became more and more worried. Xiaoqing looked at the situation and asked, "Why don't we rest for another day? We'll go to the city hall tomorrow to take a look." Chapter 62. Lin Xiaofeng felt that Xiaoqing had accommodated them enough. She had waited for so long and provided food and bandages. No matter what the reason was, she had given them enough face. If they continued to put on airs, this enmity would be set in stone. So Lin Xiaofeng immediately said, "In fact, they are all minor injuries. But for safety reasons, we should rest for a while before going in to investigate." Xiaoqing nodded and said, "We have already set up the tents. You can sleep for a while and rest up. We will go in to investigate together." Lin Xiaofeng was embarrassed and quickly ordered his team members to set up the tents. His team members were dragging their feet. They were probably still thinking about how troublesome it was to set up the tents themselves. Xiaoqing led some people to help them set up the tents. Then they went to their own places to rest. They were indeed resting. Xiaoqing's side was quite energetic. They were lying down and chatting. Xiaoqing was very calm and said to everyone, especially Xiao Tong, who was relatively weak, "At the critical moment, don't show any mercy. Just hide behind them. If there is no danger, then it's fine. If there is a problem, I hope we can all get out of this city. As for them, don't save them and don't care." No one thought that Xiaoqing was cold. Wasn't this the end of the world? If it was a team with good character, maybe they would help them. For this kind of thing, they could die wherever they wanted. No one cared. The team members all expressed that they would remember. When it was almost noon, both sides had rested enough. Yan Hanqing made a lot of portable food and distributed it. After all, they were in the building at noon, so there was certainly no place to cook. It's almost time. Let's go in. Lin Xiaofeng glanced at the towering city hall and said, if there was no problem, they should be able to come out before nightfall. If there was an accident, they could find an empty room to stay temporarily and leave someone to keep watch. After the two sides discussed, Xiaoqing's team was the one to lead the way. Originally, Lin Xiaofeng wanted them to lead the way. After all, the pressure of leading the way was relatively high. They owed a lot of favors to Xiaoqing's team, so it was natural for them to lead the way. However, his team members were not willing to do so. They were all saying that they were the ones who led the way the last time. Why should they do the same this time? It was time for Xiaoqing to lead the way. Xiaoqing gave Lin Xiaofeng, who was stuck in the middle, a way out. Your team members are right. After all, you guys were the ones who opened the path last time. This time it's our turn. Moreover, your team members are all injured. It's better for you guys to bring up the rear and conserve your energy. Lin Xiaofeng was more grateful to Xiaoqing. After all, Xiaoqing had been giving him face along the way. Compared to his team members who didn't even take the captain's words to heart, he had nothing to say. Lin Xiaofeng had made a decision. This time, when he returned to the base, he must change his team members. At least, he had to change some of them who were not blind, so that they would not offend people and make enemies for him everywhere. The formation of Xiaoqing's team was as follows. Xiaoqing and her son were in the middle, Dai was on the left, Xiao Tong was on the right, and Gu Panpan was in charge of leading the way. Gu Chuan and Yan Hanqing were in charge of assisting. In order not to let Gale's team discover the problem, Xiaoqing told Dai to keep a low profile. She didn't want to scare the zombies and make them not dare to come out. All the way up, Xiaoqing's team members almost didn't make a move. Only Gu Panpan's team members in the front moved. Lin Xiaofeng, who was at the back, couldn't help but frown. It was obvious that Gu Panpan was a strength-type ability user. This was especially obvious, but not rare. Gu Chuan's ability was rarer. The ice element was a variant. Among the thousands of water-type ability users, who knew if there was even a palm-sized number of ice-type ability users? If Gu Chuan's superpower was rare, then Yan Hanqing's superpower was rare. At present, the number of lightning superpowered people was pitifully small. Yan Hanqing might be the third lightning superpowered person to be registered. The third one didn't mean that there were 2 lightning superpowered people in their base. It meant that there were registered lightning superpowered people in all the survivor bases in the country. That was how rare they were. The movements of the 3 people who opened the way were very simple. They didn't make any fancy moves. As soon as the zombies came out, either Gu Chuan would freeze them or Yan Hanqing would use lightning. The zombies that couldn't move were easily dealt with by Gu Panpan. It's nothing. A member of Gale's team muttered, "They're all so arrogant. I thought they were very powerful." Lin Xiaofeng was so angry that he didn't want to talk. His team members didn't have eyes, did they? They didn't even have brains. Why didn't they think about it? They were also opening the way, but they were flying in front with all kinds of superpowers. It looked very powerful, but they wasted so many superpowers. Their speed was not as fast as Xiaoqing's team. This team member had to be changed. He must have been blind to have brought such a group of idiots into his team of ability users. Cheng Jiao and Lin Xiaofeng were childhood sweethearts, so Cheng Jiao could tell what Lin Xiaofeng was thinking. She patted Lin Xiaofeng's shoulder and said, "Brother Feng, don't be too angry. We've been on missions together for so long. Don't you know what kind of people they are? They like to take advantage of you, but deep down they still trust you." Lin Xiaofeng didn't say anything, but he had already made up his mind. Xiaoqing's team was indeed very efficient. It only took them a few minutes to go from the first floor to the second floor. The mission description was very clear that the information was stored in the reference room on the 6th floor. That was to say, they didn't need to go to the top floor. They just needed to go to the reference room on the 6th floor. The City Hall building was quite empty. After all, most of the people inside were staff and leaders. When the army came to rescue, the City Hall building was the first to be rescued. At the beginning of the apocalypse, the City Hall building had been cleaned up by the rescue army. The remaining zombies were the survivors at that time, and the outsiders who came later. The difficulty of this mission was that they had to go deep into the zombie-occupied city. That was why the reward was so high. Xiaoqing's team went all the way to the 4th floor. They didn't encounter any big trouble, so many people couldn't help but feel a little relaxed. Especially the Gale Paranormal team, who was responsible for bringing up the rear. They could be said to have walked leisurely all the way up. They didn't even move their hands. No wonder they let their guard down. But the fact told them that if they let their guard down in this kind of situation, they would often lose their lives. Xiaoqing's team was about to go to the 5th floor when a scream came from behind. Xiaoqing looked back and saw a corpse with half of its neck torn open on the ground. The Gale Paranormal team didn't even see the murderer. Chapter 63. The corpse's neck was torn apart violently, and the broken laryngeal bone could be seen. Blood spurted out and fell to the ground. The body was still warm, but it was already dead. Only the body's limbs were still twitching slightly. Everyone's heart was cold. They didn't even know what the murderer looked like, when he killed the man, and when he left. It was a mockery. The members of the Fierce Wind Squad, who thought highly of themselves, felt like they had been slapped hard in the face. More than that, they were sad, because the dead man was one of their members. For a long time no one spoke. After a long time, a member of the Fierce Wind Squad stepped forward, picked up the body and said, "This is our brother. We have to take him home." Xiaoqing was calm. "The smell of blood will attract more zombies. Even if he died, he wasn't your man. Don't you feel anything?" One of the members of the Fierce Wind Squad roared with red eyes. "This is my brother. So you let your other brothers die because of him?" Xiaoqing said blandly. "I don't think it's a good choice. You know nothing." Another member of the Crazy Concubines squad rushed up and was about to attack. "I want to ask you how you opened the road. Did you do it on purpose? You don't like us, so you let the zombies come here? I can see that you are a woman with a heart as vicious as snakes and scorpions." Before he could do anything, Yan Hanqing had already stepped forward and kicked him away. The man flew out fiercely and fell on top of the dead body. His head and face were stained with blood. Seeing Yan Hanqing attack, the remaining members of the Fierce Wind Squad couldn't hold back anymore. They rushed over. Lin Xiaofeng shouted angrily but didn't stop them. However, these people still had some sense of propriety. Although they attacked, they didn't use their superpowers. Xiaoqing handed the little bun to Yan Hanqing and said calmly, "You all step back. I'm enough." Yan Hanqing and the others were absolutely confident in Xiaoqing. They all took a step back. Xiao Tong even took out 5 spice peanuts to eat. It only took Xiaoqing a minute to deal with the 3 of them. Then they were lying on the ground, unable to get up. It was not a glorious thing for 3 grown men to be beaten by a woman empty-handed and crying out in pain. Not to mention the onlookers, even they themselves felt embarrassed. In the end, Lin Xiaofeng walked over. "Have you calmed down now?" All 3 of them, including the one who had just crawled up from the corpse, lowered their heads. They understood the reason, but they were hit by Xiaoqing in a moment of hot-bloodedness. Lin Xiaofeng hurriedly apologized to Xiaoqing. "I'm really sorry for causing you trouble." Xiaoqing shook her head. "Quickly get rid of the corpse. We can't fight among ourselves anymore. After all, there is still a killer, hiding in the dark." Only then did they wake up. It was indeed not the time to fight among themselves. Several members endured the pain and burned the corpse. They put the ashes in a bag and took it away. When they went on the road again, their vigilance was high. After all, there was already a precedent. No matter how stupid they were, they wouldn't be as relaxed as before. Probably the killer, in the dark, also knew that they were vigilant. Until they reached the 5th floor, that thing didn't make any more moves. When they reached the 6th floor, they became even more vigilant. I originally wanted everyone to spread out and search for it. That way it would be faster. But now, there's a monster hiding in the dark. I'm sure it's very fast and very lethal. So we can't spread out and let it kill us one by one. Lin Xiaofeng thought for a moment and then said, "Why don't we search together? Although it will be slower, at least it will be safer." Xiaoqing nodded. "Or we can split into 2 teams. That way it will be faster." "Let's go together. Safety first," Lin Xiaofeng said with some pain. "I don't want to sacrifice any more brothers." Xiaoqing nodded. "Then we will start from here and search along the corridor. We will only look for the room on one side. When we reach the end, we will go back and look for the room on the other side." Lin Xiaofeng said, "That's the safest way." "I agree. One more thing. Is there an earth ability user? The moment we open the door, we have to prevent something from jumping out. So if there is an earth ability user with high defense to open the door, it will be safer." Xiaoqing was the first to say. "We don't have one here." "I am." The short guy who was kicked away by Yan Hanqing raised his hand and said, "I am a level 2 earth ability user. I have earth armor and earth shield. I will open the door." "Little 6, you do it." Lin Xiaofeng nodded. "Be careful." Little 6 attached the earth armor to his body and condensed an earth shield in his hand. Then he went to open the first door on the left. Fortunately, after the first door was opened, nothing came out. However, they didn't let their guard down. Little 6 was the first to enter the door, followed by Yan Hanqing, who had the thunder ability, and a fire ability user from the wind ability user team. Both of them were assault type. If they were in danger, they could quickly help Little 6. The rest of the team came in one after another. 3 people were left to guard the door, in case they were attacked from the front and back. However, there was nothing in the room. They searched around, but found neither information nor zombies. They opened the second door in the same way. The room was also a mess. There were messy bloodstains on the floor, but there was no information or zombies. When they reached the end of the corridor, Little 6 tried to open the door, but it was locked. They had encountered 2 rooms with locked doors before, but it wasn't a problem. Little 6 moved aside slightly, then covered Gu Panpan with an earth shield. Gu Panpan took a deep breath and instantly turned into a King Kong Barbie. She kicked the door open. Yes, it was broken. Just as the door shattered, a black shadow pounced out. At this moment, Gu Panpan's reaction time was clear. She was very calm and unhurried. She firmly stomped her foot on the ground, and then smashed her fist into the thing's head. Chapter 64. The punch was so solid that the zombie's head burst open, and its brains spilled all over the ground. Of course, that was not the point. The point was that the one who had launched the sneak attack had come out again. This time, it had targeted Gu Chuan. Just as it was about to strike, Xiaoqing discovered it first. She quickly waved her vines and whipped it to the ground. Its body hit the ground with a loud noise. Everyone looked at the zombie. It quickly got up and tried to escape, but its lower body was bound by Xiaoqing's vines. It was a young zombie. It should be a male, but its face was rotten beyond recognition. Its hands were different from those of ordinary zombies. Its nails were extraordinarily long, as if its hands were full of sharp knives. It was probably the weapon that had torn open the throat of the Gale Paranormal. "Kill it. Avenge our brother." The Fire Paranormal from the Gale Paranormal attacked without saying a word. Fortunately, Lin Xiaofeng was more rational. "Don't be too impulsive. We have more people. We won't let it run away." "Yes, don't use the fire ability. Burn the vines and it will run away." Xiaoqing tightened the vines and said coldly, "Those who don't use the wood ability go first. Don't let it run away." Lin Xiaofeng nodded. This was also the first time Xiaoqing had seen Lin Xiaofeng's special ability. His special ability was also relatively rare. It allowed him to control metal. In his hands, metal could freely change into various shapes to be used in battle. As for Cheng Jiao, she was also a very special paranormal. Her hair could quickly grow and become extraordinarily tough, just like Xiaoqing's vines, which could be used to bind others. The cooperation between Cheng Jiao and Lin Xiaofeng was like that between Xiaoqing and Gu Panpan. One was controlling the other, and the other was attacking. They had a tacit understanding. The zombie was very fast, but it couldn't withstand the attacks of 7 or 8 people at the same time. It didn't even have time to react before it was buried in the colorful superpowers. When the light dissipated, only bones were left. Lin Xiaofeng's people breathed a sigh of relief, feeling the pleasure of revenge. The fire-powered paranormal, who hadn't been able to make a move, was so angry that he ran up to the zombie and turned it into ashes. After the group of people finished cleaning up this strange house, they went into the room to search. This room was filled with information, and it was very likely that this was the information room they were looking for. However, there was too much information in this room, and a lot of it was damaged by the zombie hiding in the room. Maybe this zombie was the administrator of the information room. When the apocalypse came, he became a zombie or was bitten, so he specially locked the door, not wanting to turn into a zombie and bite others. However, the documents in the house were all destroyed by the zombies. Xiaoqing and the others searched for a long time, and finally found an incomplete document about water purification. They were all stunned. What should they do with only half of the document? Moreover, it was badly damaged, with a lot of blood and torn fragments. Ordinary people couldn't understand what it was. After a moment of silence, Cheng Jiao suddenly said, "My brother is a civil servant. He once told me that there are at least 3 copies of important information. One is stored in the database on the computer, one is stored in a USB drive, and one is printed in paper. Should we go up and have a look?" Lin Xiaofeng asked. "Even if we go up and find the computer and the USB flash drive, there is no electricity. How can we find the information? How can we determine which USB flash drive the information is in?" Xiaoqing asked calmly. "There is a research room under the government building. Even if the power outside is cut off, the research room won't be cut off. We still have a chance." Cheng Jiao gritted her teeth and said, "Since we are already here, we should at least do the task perfectly. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time." Xiaoqing was silent for a while, and then asked for Yan Hanqing's opinion. "Should we go to the basement?" "Let's go." Gu Panpan and Gu Chuan exchanged their opinions, and then said, "If we can really find the information and the method to purify the water, it will be good for us." Xiaoqing then looked at Lin Xiaofeng. Lin Xiaofeng was silent for a while, and then said, "Sorry, I want to take my brothers out first." He knew that it was unkind of him to do this, but it was true. If they lost any more members, the Gale squad would suffer a great loss. Although he kept saying that he would replace all the members when he returned, in fact, he hoped more than anyone that none of his members would stay here forever. They could go back and submit the information, and he didn't want to take any more risks. Cheng Jiao's eyes widened. She wanted to say something, but after a while, she still didn't say anything. Finally, she lowered her head. "Then you guys go out and wait. I will take my team to go down and have a look. It would be best if there is electricity, but if not, we will just leave." Xiaoqing didn't complain. She just said lightly. She didn't want to be a saint. She just wanted the environment to become better and better. At least, she wanted her son to have a better life in the future. After all, she wasn't the only one who benefited from this. Chapter 65. Feeling ashamed, Lin Xiaofeng left with his team members. The 2 teams separated on the first floor. Xiaoqing led her team members into the elevator. She never thought of herself as a good person. She even thought that she was cold-blooded and heartless, but she had her own bottom line. She had her own judgment on what should be done, what should not be done, what should not be done, what should not be done, and what should be done. Due to the lack of electricity, the elevator couldn't operate normally. There were no stairs to the basement, so they could only take the elevator. Gu Panpan violently destroyed the elevator, and the elevator inside screamed as it fell. Finally, it hit the ground with a loud bang. Xiaoqing wrapped the vines around the door handle not far away. In order to make sure that the vines would not break when they went down, Xiaoqing used several vines to make a very strong vine rope. To ensure safety, Xiaoqing was the first one to go down. She grabbed the vines and slowly climbed down the dark passage. At last, she landed on the wreckage of the elevator. The basement was particularly dark and gloomy. She frowned and took out some clothes from her space. Then, she found an iron rod and wrapped the clothes around one end of the iron rod to make a simple torch. There was no one with fire power in their team. In order to make a fire, everyone would bring a lighter with them when they went out. Xiaoqing was no exception. She lit the torch with the lighter. When the light illuminated the area around her, she was startled. Next to her was a zombie that was beyond recognition. It was smashed under the wreckage of the elevator. Its body was broken at the waist. Its upper body was crawling on the ground, dragging long guts out. Anyone who saw this scene would be scared out of their wits. She mercifully freed the poor zombie, and then looked around. She didn't find any other zombies, so she pulled the vines, and the people above came down one after another. When everyone came down, Xiaoqing had already found the light switch. She pressed the switch, and a row of lights lit up one after another. The originally dark space instantly became as bright as day. It was so bright that it stung people's eyes. The entire basement wasn't big. There were only 2 rows of 8 rooms and an empty space. However, it was very messy. It was hard to tell what it used to be. It's better to be cautious. Let's start from the first room. Xiaoqing didn't dare to let her companions take the risk, so she used vines to open the door. The vines wriggled up the doorknob and twisted it open. Then the vines pushed the door open. The room was dark, and only the dusty floor could be seen from the part where the light shone in. The rest of the room was gloomy. Xiaoqing controlled the vines and groped around the wall. She found the switch and turned on the light. They didn't know whether it was luck or not. As soon as the light was turned on, they saw a lot of computers in the room. Who knows how to use computers? Xiaoqing went out first. She didn't find any danger, so she turned back and asked, "Me?" Gu Chuan came over and turned on the computer. "I learned programming in college." Several other people also helped to turn on the rest of the computers. The computers here had passwords. Gu Chuan tried and began to crack them. Xiaoqing didn't know how to do this, so she said, "You guys stay here. I'll go out and have a look." Xiaoqing didn't go far. She went out of the door and looked around. There were definitely zombies here. After all, there was no elevator. The mutated zombies couldn't leave. They must be hiding now. I can feel. Xiaoqing was looking around. Suddenly, a somewhat childish voice sounded in her mind. She was stunned. She looked back and saw Xiao Tong standing at the door with a nervous expression. "Just now, sister. It's me." Xiao Tong's fingers were intertwined. She nervously drew circles on the ground with her toes. Her voice was thin and soft. It directly sounded in Xiaoqing's mind. "What's the matter?" Xiaoqing was very surprised. Xiao Tong's eyes were bright. She was like a child who had just learned to speak. Her pronunciation was very unclear. Before breaking through learning, Xiaoqing almost understood. Xiao Tong meant that when she broke through to the second level, she learned to convey her thoughts with her consciousness. This should be the unique ability of psychics. This ability may not be useful for others, but for Xiao Tong who couldn't speak, it was the most useful ability. Xiaoqing was also very excited. Since the moment she brought Xiao Tong home, she treated her as a family member. Otherwise, she wouldn't use Xiao as her surname. Now, Xiao Tong could use another way to do what she wanted but couldn't. Xiaoqing was also happy for her. "Sister." Xiao Tong looked at Xiaoqing nervously and shyly. Her beautiful big eyes were shining. "I like you." Chapter 66. Xiaoqing blushed inexplicably. It felt good to be relied on and loved wholeheartedly. Of course, it had nothing to do with love. "Sister, over there." Xiao Tong turned her face to a corner. She was a psychic paranormal, so her perception was different from others. She could sense the abnormal spiritual waves in that corner. Follow behind me. Be careful and guard against this. Xiaoqing touched her head and told Yan Hanqing and the others. Then she walked to the corner with only Air Dai and Xiaotong. When they reached the corner, even Xiaoqing was shocked. The ground was littered with corpses. All of them were mutilated corpses. Some of them had already mutated, while others had already turned into zombies. All of them had died in this corner. In the corner, there was a curled-up person, probably a human. Her body was covered with dirty blood, and her breathing was very weak. When Xiaoqing came over, the girl raised her head. The left side of her face was rotten and hideous, while the right side was as smooth as a freshly peeled egg. Her voice was hoarse and terrible. A living person. Who are you? Xiaoqing frowned. She didn't feel any murderous intent from the girl. She paused for a long time, and then said slowly, "You are not living person." "She is." Then she closed her mouth and didn't say anything. Xiaotong suddenly looked at the girl. They didn't say anything, but some slight energy waves rippled in the air. They were probably communicating with their minds. After a long time, the girl reached out and stuck her hand into her own chest. She pulled out a yellowish thing the size of an egg and handed it to Xiaotong. Her normal eye was suddenly filled with tears. She said softly, "The USB flash drive has a password. It's my birthday 199000613. If you enter the wrong password, the USB flash drive will format itself. Thank you." Xiaotong looked at Xiaoqing. She didn't say anything. Xiaoqing also understood. She took out a military knife and gave it to Xiaotong. Xiaotong personally freed the girl. After the girl stopped breathing completely, Xiaotong told Xiaoqing the whole story. The girl had a very special disease. Her eyes couldn't see the sun. Even if the cornea was replaced, it would be useless. Her father had been doing all kinds of research, hoping to cure her disease. Although the girl's eyes weren't good, she was a genius. For example, the water purification method was something she had researched. She had sent the information over just in time for the outbreak of the apocalypse. When they were in the basement, because all the researchers were physically weak, when the apocalypse broke out, all of them were infected by the zombie virus. Some became zombies in the early stages, and some were bitten. Due to her high IQ, the girl awakened a psychic ability. However, she was bitten during the awakening process and turned into a half-human, half-zombie. She couldn't die or live even if she wanted to. Before those people became zombies, they begged her to end their lives so that they couldn't go out and hurt others. It was better to die than to become a walking dead who hurt their own kind. Therefore, she was left alone, struggling bitterly. The zombie that was smashed to death by the elevator wreckage was deliberately left behind. Firstly, it was too lonely to be alone. Secondly, it was a warning. If someone tried to take away all the information here, she would be able to find it. After everything was done, the girl sat in the corner. Her psychic ability could make her cells divide constantly, but they were constantly swallowed by the zombie virus. She could only feel her body being swallowed by the zombie virus little by little. And she was losing control of herself little by little, until Xiaoqing and the others came. Finally, she could be free. She didn't have to struggle in madness and despair every day and night. Death was a kind of relief. Xiaotong held the yellow thing and handed it to Xiaoqing. It should be something between an energy source and a zombie crystal. Xiaoqing shook his head. She gave it to you. You can take it. I don't need it. When your level is higher, you can protect me. If I meet her father in the future, I must tell him that she is living a good life. Hearing this, Xiaotong accepted it happily. Then, she sent a message to Xiaoqing with sparkling eyes. Xiaoqing hung the special crystal on her neck with a vine twig, so that she could absorb it at any time. I will remember it. If I have a chance to meet this girl's father in the future, I will tell him that I met this girl one day, and she is living a good life. After the girl's body was disposed of, Xiaoqing took Air Dai and Xiaotong back. When he got back, he saw several people working around the computer. What's wrong? I found a document in the computer. I want to back up it with a USB flash drive, but the USB flash drive needs a password. Gu Chuan said with a headache. The password is 199000613. There is a complete document in it. You can check it. If it is, we can go, Xiaoqing said in a low voice. Gu Chuan checked it and found a complete document in the USB flash drive. He couldn't help but be surprised. How did you know? Xiaoqing told them what had happened just now, and they all sighed. Since they got the document, they didn't need to find anything else. Following the method they used when they came, they let the vines climb up and find a place to fix it. Then Xiaoqing took the lead and climbed up first. Although there was light underground, it was full of the smell of blood, decay, gloominess and mold. It was very depressing. As soon as they came out, they couldn't help but take a deep breath. Well, the task is done. Now we just need to go back and hand in the task. Xiaoqing breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go out and see if the storm squad is still there. They must have run away with the incomplete document. Gu Panpan couldn't help but say. What level 3 storm squad? They are just a group of shameless hooligans. Xiaoqing laughed as she walked out. Panpan, you're actually quite gentle. Look, you only know how to scold people with these few words. I will call them a group of idiots. Gu Panpan was not convinced. When they walked out of the door, they were all stunned. The ground was full of corpses, and they were all familiar corpses. The storm squad. Chapter 67. Xiao Lu's body was torn in half, and his internal organs were scattered all over the ground. The two halves of his body were badly mutilated. The chest of the fire ability user was torn open, revealing his broken bones and internal organs. The young man who was kicked away by Yan Hanqing was even more miserable. From his waist down, only his bones were left. Corpses lay on the ground one after another, and the only one alive was Lin Xiaofeng. His left arm was broken, and it hung limply on the ground. He lay on the ground covered in blood, and was on the verge of death. When he saw Xiaoqing, he shouted hoarsely, Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao has been taken away. What was that? Xiaoqing calmly took out some medicine to stop the bleeding on Lin Xiaofeng's body. Lin Xiaofeng grabbed Xiaoqing's arm with his right hand that could still move and said anxiously, It's a mutated zombie. It's very strong and can tear a person in half. There's also a mutated zombie dog with it. Captain Xiao, please save Jiao Jiao. Xiaoqing was expressionless, and he didn't want to help. He just slowly sprinkled medicine on Lin Xiaofeng. Lin Xiaofeng said anxiously, As long as you save Jiao Jiao, all the rewards of this mission will be yours. If you die here, the rewards will be ours when we go back, Xiaoqing said expressionlessly. Not only that, as long as you save Jiao Jiao, all my assets will be yours. Lin Xiaofeng's tears fell from the corners of his eyes. Not only his teammates, but he also thought too highly of himself. That was why he fell so heavily. Cheng Jiao was his childhood sweetheart, and also his lover. They had been together since the apocalypse, and they had supported each other. However, they fell in this place. His brothers were all dead, and even Cheng Jiao's fate was unknown. Why? Xiaoqing asked with confusion. I thought you would beg me to take you out of this city. After all, she was taken away by a zombie. Even if she didn't die, she would become a zombie. I love her. Lin Xiaofeng's glasses were nowhere to be seen. He clutched Xiaoqing's arm tightly, and his voice was extremely hoarse. Hanqing, you guys take Captain Lin to the car first. I'll look around and see if I can find Cheng Jiao. Xiaoqing let go of Lin Xiaofeng and prepared to check it out. She didn't think that Cheng Jiao was still alive. After all, not all zombies were like her and Dai, who caught a living person and kept them alive. She wanted to search around and let Lin Xiaofeng owe her a favor. If she could find Cheng Jiao's body and bring it back, it would be even better. She didn't let Lin Xiaofeng down. Dai followed Xiaoqing without hesitation. He had become Xiaoqing's little tail. Wherever Xiaoqing went, he had to follow. He didn't want to be separated from Xiaoqing for even a moment. Even if Xiaoqing disappeared from his sight for more than a certain amount of time, he would go crazy. Xiaoqing also knew Dai's habits, so she took Dai and went in the direction that Lin Xiaofeng said. Soon, they found a clue because there were bloody dog paw prints on the ground. Xiaoqing and Dai started to search along the bloody dog paw prints. The dog paw prints finally stopped in front of a shop with a smashed glass door. Xiaoqing tentatively walked into the house. Once she reached the door, a zombie dog jumped out, baring its fangs and dripping saliva mixed with blood. It wasn't very rotten. It stared at Xiaoqing fiercely. Dumbo Air quickly rushed up and fought with the zombie dog. The zombie dog had good strength and agility, but it was not as good as Dumbo Air. Soon, it was beaten by Dumbo Air and lay on the ground crying. In the end, it was killed by Air Dai. After killing the zombie dog, the two of them walked in. As soon as they entered, they saw a shocking scene. Cheng Jiao, who was dying, was pushed against the wall by a tall zombie. Her shirt was torn and her pants were completely torn. Although they were blocked by the zombie's body and couldn't see what happened, Xiaoqing could guess. Cheng Jiao's arms were broken, so she couldn't struggle at all. She stared at the ceiling blankly, and bright red blood kept flowing out of her lips. Seeing this scene, Xiaoqing felt that her hands were trembling. Cheng Jiao was raped by a zombie, so she couldn't die even if she wanted to. She didn't think that it was risky to agree to Lin Xiaofeng's request to search for Cheng Jiao. There was only one thought in her mind, which was to kill this special zombie. When the zombie heard the sound, it threw Cheng Jiao aside and walked towards Xiaoqing with its swaying thing. It looked at Xiaoqing with a strange desire, which made Xiaoqing feel disgusted. Air Dai couldn't stand it either. He didn't know why he was angry, but he felt that his precious treasure was being violated by someone else. He rushed up quickly, and when he fought with the zombie, his first target was the zombie's lower body. In particular, that important part became the object of his attention. After being stepped on, the zombie went crazy. Before it could do anything to Air Dai, it was entangled by vines. However, this zombie was very strong, and the vines only restrained it for a second before it broke. However, there was an endless stream of vines that climbed up layer by layer. It didn't matter if the vines were broken, but when the old ones fell, new ones would immediately replace them. Before the zombies could fight back, they were beaten by Dumbo until they screamed miserably. In particular, a key part of their body was almost broken by Dumbo's stomp. However, it was a huge burden for Xiaoqing to use her superpower in such a reckless manner. Her face quickly turned pale, but she still gritted her teeth and continued to release vines to bind the zombie. That zombie was really tough. Air Dai tried for a long time, but couldn't leave any big scars on its body, let alone seriously injure it. Xiaoqing gradually calmed down. She was indeed a little impulsive just now. After calming down, Xiaoqing began to observe. She didn't believe that this zombie didn't have any weakness. The zombie's clothes were burned, which meant that fire didn't have any effect on it. Cheng Jiao must have tried to bind this zombie when she was facing the fierce wind squad. Then, she cooperated with Lin Xiaofeng to attack it, but it didn't work. Otherwise, the fierce wind squad wouldn't have been almost wiped out, and Cheng Jiao wouldn't have been kidnapped and humiliated. Xiaoqing observed carefully. No matter what, she had to kill this zombie today, not only for Cheng Jiao. Obviously, Cheng Jiao wasn't the first victim. In a corner not far away, there were several naked female corpses. Although some of them were rotten, some were relatively new. It was obvious that they had been humiliated when they were alive, and there was a big hole in their stomachs. Even if it was for the good of the people, she was going to kill this zombie. Chapter 68. Xiaoqing's long and sharp nails were moving rhythmically. For the first time, she was multitasking. On one hand, she was using vines to bind the zombie. On the other hand, she was rushing forward. Together with Air Dai, they were fighting the zombie. During the fight, Xiaoqing had been constantly trying to attack the zombie's throat, head and other vital points. However, she did not receive any ridicule. Until she attacked the zombie's eyes. The zombie dodged for the first time. Xiaoqing's eyes lit up. She and Air Dai began to attract the zombie's attention. Finally, when the zombie was busy running around, one of its eyes was poked blind. The huge zombie howled on the spot. Xiaoqing didn't even have time to breathe a sigh of relief before she heard a rustling sound coming from the surroundings. When she looked up, she saw 5 or 6 little zombies with umbilical cords around their bodies. They were like half-rotten monkeys crawling over. Their eyes were very big. When they stared at people, they looked very scary. They would only let out a strange cry. Xiaoqing suddenly understood why the female corpses in the corner had a huge hole in their stomachs. These monsters should have crawled out from their bodies. They all crawled out from the stomachs of the corpses. Why were they not as cute as her little bun? So it was better to die. The monkey-like baby zombies rushed over while crying. Then they were swallowed by the man-eating flower. The man-eating flower lazily stretched its huge leaves. Pia, it slapped a baby zombie that was trying to get close to Xiaoqing to the ground. Another one rushed over and was swallowed by the man-eating flower. It was not worried about indigestion at all. The man-eating flower had a very good appetite. It swallowed a few zombies in one bite. Once they entered the mouth of the man-eating flower, they were paralyzed by the venom secreted by the flower. Then they were quickly digested. The man-eating flower had not eaten so full for a long time. It was happy and twisted there. When the big zombie saw its last helpers being slapped on the ground like rubber balls and eaten one by one, it tried to run away. However, Xiaoqing's vines kept entangling it. When it was broken, new vines would replace it. The big zombie was about to go crazy. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of fluffy things. When that thing came out, it drilled into Xiaoqing and Erdai's bodies. Although Xiaoqing was prepared, she still could not block it completely. She gritted her teeth and jumped on the zombie's back. At the same time, the vines crazily wrapped around it. Erdai also rushed over and hugged the zombie. Xiaoqing held the military knife and fiercely stabbed it into the zombie's eye socket. Stab after stab, black blood mixed with the ruptured eyeball sputtered out, causing the zombie to continuously howl as if it had gone crazy. Xiaoqing had already felt that something was growing and spreading in her body. It was the same feeling as if she had planted a seed in someone else's body. The moment it exploded, the body was full of plants. She knew that she could not waste a minute. She fiercely stabbed into the zombie's eye socket. The tip of the knife pierced through the back of the zombie's head. Again and again, the back of its head was poked into a hornet's nest. The last zombie was dead, but it was still fixed in place by the vines and Erdai. Xiaoqing stabbed it until its head was full of holes. Then Xiaoqing kicked its body away. She grabbed Erdai and stuck her hand into Erdai's abdomen. Erdai did not resist at all. It just stared at Xiaoqing with its big eyes and let Xiaoqing search inside its abdomen. Xiaoqing searched for a while and suddenly pulled her hand out. Then she pulled out a thin mass of daughter. This kind of plant was like a vine. It used a vine-like structure to climb on other plants. Then, it would extend sharp thorns from the parts of the plant that were in contact with the plant. It would pierce the plant's epidermis and absorb nutrients for its own growth. In the end, the plant that it climbed on would gradually die due to lack of nutrients. Then it would look for other plants to climb on. In short, it was a very disgusting plant. After that mass of daughter was pulled out, more daughter started to grow in Erdai's body. Xiaoqing gritted her teeth. She cut a wound on her wrist with the military knife and stabbed it into Erdai's abdomen again. As expected, the seeds of the daughter climbed into Xiaoqing's body through the wound. Erdai suddenly grabbed Xiaoqing's arm and tried to pull it out. He should have sensed Xiaoqing's thoughts. Xiaoqing grabbed Erdai's hand and said, "Don't move. I have a wood power. I have a way to deal with them. Don't pull it. It hurts." Erdai froze. He didn't know what to do and didn't dare to move. It was as if he didn't notice that there was a hole in his abdomen. All he could think about was the wound on Xiaoqing's hand. When Erdai's body was clear of the daughter, Xiaoqing let out a sigh of relief. She pulled her hand out and pushed Erdai. "Go check on Chengjiao. I'll see if I can get rid of it." Erdai didn't move. He squatted down and looked at Xiaoqing without blinking. He was very stubborn, especially when it came to the issue of leaving Xiaoqing. He was as stubborn as a bull. Even Xiaoqing couldn't persuade him. Xiaoqing had to give up. She endured the pain of her internal organs being pierced by the daughter. She started to communicate with the daughter with her wood power. These daughters had lost their master, so they multiplied and grew without any scruples. Xiaoqing's wood elemental energy was loved by all plants in the world, and the daughters were no exception. At the very beginning, they tentatively came in contact with the wood elemental energy, then began to unscrupulously extend their bodies towards the wood elemental energy. When they had almost wrapped the wood power into a ball, Xiaoqing activated her power again. She wrapped a ball of energy around the daughter and attacked it from the inside. Xiaoqing wanted to get rid of the daughter directly. However, she found that they were very stubborn. They kept growing and multiplying. At this rate, it would take Xiaoqing about a month to get rid of them. In the end, Xiaoqing gave up. She directly tamed the daughter. After all, she hadn't found a third mutant plant after upgrading. Although the daughter didn't have much effect on zombies, it was very useful against humans. 1 or 2 daughter seeds were too small. People wouldn't be able to find them if they didn't know about their existence. It was a must-have for traveling and killing people. After taming the daughter, Xiaoqing's face was terribly pale. She walked to Chengjiao. Chengjiao had already used her broken right hand to put her left hand back to its original position. The clicking sounds were particularly frightening. "Are you okay?" Xiaoqing asked softly. Chengjiao's voice was hoarse. "Lend me a knife." Chapter 69. Xiaoqing didn't say anything and silently carried Chengjiao back. When they got back, Chengjiao was already asleep. Lin Xiaofeng had been holding on until he saw Xiaoqing carrying Chengjiao back. Then he closed his eyes to rest. He was already at his limit and had been holding on. When Lin Xiaofeng woke up, he found that his car was shaking. When he turned his head, he could see Chengjiao's pale face and her bandaged stomach. He didn't see any big wounds on her body. He relaxed immediately, and the wounds all over his body started to hurt. Xiaoqing was sitting in front of them. Hearing the sound, she turned her head. "Don't worry. Her body is seriously injured and she's mentally exhausted. I gave her some sleeping pills and let her sleep a little longer." "Thank you," Lin Xiaofeng said sincerely. Xiaoqing curled her lips slightly and said with a little evil tone, "You really love her. She and I were childhood sweethearts. We grew up together. Many people say that 2 childhood sweethearts can't fall in love with each other because they are too familiar with each other. But I'm different from Chengjiao. I love her very much, and she loves me very much. After this kind of relationship settled down, it became like family." Lin Xiaofeng laughed self-deprecatingly. "I treat her as my lover, but I also treat her like a sister. I can't protect her. Do you know what happened to her before?" Xiaoqing looked Lin Xiaofeng up and down and said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Lin Xiaofeng's face paled a lot. But soon he became determined. "No matter what happened to her, it's all in the past. I will comfort her and heal her inner wounds." Xiaoqing didn't say anything else. She turned around lazily with her back facing Lin Xiaofeng. "Don't forget your previous promise. Don't worry." Lin Xiaofeng moved his body and pulled Chengjiao into his arms. Their relationship was already very complicated. There were elements of love, family, and it was hard to let go of each other. The more complicated the relationship, the more sincere and solid it was. Chengjiao woke up at dinner time. Because of her injuries, she had been drinking soup, steamed buns and minced meat. During dinner time, Chengjiao was very calm. She and Lin Xiaofeng were in the same tent. Xiaoqing knew that she would tell Lin Xiaofeng everything. Then Xiaoqing also entered the tent. Once in the tent, Xiaoqing found Erbook sitting in the tent with his pants down to his knees. He lowered his head and looked at the area between his legs seriously. However, zombies really didn't have that kind of ability, except for the mutated zombie today. Xiaoqing looked at Dai's round and white exposed. He couldn't help but kick him. "What are you doing?" Luckily, Xiaotong is not here. Erbook felt wronged. He pulled Xiaoqing's hand and touched it. Then his hand was slapped away by Xiaoqing. Erbook felt wronged. He stared at Xiaoqing as if to ask why he couldn't do what the tall zombie could do. Erbook vaguely knew that what he saw before was the most intimate thing between a man and a woman. Subconsciously, he also wanted to do that with Xiaoqing. Unfortunately, his body wasn't strong enough. Xiaoqing pinched Erbook's inner thigh and said coldly, "Go to sleep, or I'll chop it off." Erbook immediately clamped his thighs and became very obedient. Xiaoqing pulled up his pants and sighed. "It's okay if you're at home, but don't take off your pants casually outside. It won't be good if other people see it." Erbook nodded confusedly and cooperated with Xiaoqing to pull up his pants. Xiaoqing sometimes felt that Erbook was a very possessive brat. However, he was also very strong. Don't sleep tonight. Absorb it and see if you can break through. Xiaoqing stuffed a few high-level zombie crystal nuclei into Dumbo's hands. She didn't notice that there was a crystal nucleus of the zombie she had just killed today. Erdai was also obedient. He put all the nuclei in the small pouch that Xiaoqing gave him a long time ago. Then he took them out one by one to absorb them. When Xiao Tong came in with Little Bun, the family of 4 each took a nuclei and started to absorb them. The higher the level, the more energy they needed. Take Xiaoqing as an example. She was now at level 3. Absorbing level 1 zombie nuclei was almost useless to her. Level 2 zombie nuclei weren't very useful to her either. Only level 3 to level 4 nuclei were suitable for her to absorb. Low-level nuclei were useless. High-level nuclei couldn't be used. Level 3 or 4 nuclei were more suitable for her. However, level 3 or 4 zombie nuclei weren't easy to find. She only had 1 level 4 zombie nuclei. She still had a few level 3 nuclei. As for the level 4 one, she planned to absorb it when she returned to the base and was safe. For now, she just needed to absorb level 2 or 3 nuclei. The next morning, when they were ready to leave, Xiaoqing looked at Lin Xiaofeng's expression. She didn't find anything strange. Not all men could accept that their lover was raped. Some men would even push the blame to the woman. Even some people were like that. When a woman was raped, it must be because the woman was usually flirtatious, or came into contact with some hooligans, or went to some places that she shouldn't have. In short, it was the woman's fault. Xiaoqing had seen a lot of such things. She felt that Lin Xiaofeng, who was so calm, was still a man. She could blackmail him less when they went back. His teammates were all dead. His wife was raped by zombies. He was also seriously injured. He was quite pitiful. Of course he owed her everything. They went back much faster than when they came. Of course, they wanted to relax. After all, in this huge post-apocalyptic world, the base was considered safe. In the base, they didn't have to worry about being bitten by zombies when they woke up in the middle of the night. They could also rest and relax. When they returned to the base, they bumped into the higher-ups of other bases. Xiaoqing took them to hand in the mission. When they handed in the mission, the girl in the mission hall was stunned. A level 1 paranormal team with a terrible name completed a difficult mission without losing a single member. However, of the level 3 paranormal team, only the captain and vice-captain were left. Wasn't this a miracle? All the rewards belonged to them. Lin Xiaofeng supported Cheng Jiao. He couldn't help but gasp when he spoke. The mission has been handed in. Captain Xiao, I'll take Jiao Jiao back first. I'll treat you to a meal next time. Xiaoqing watched Lin Xiaofeng leave. She was secretly happy. After all, they had been busy for so long. They had been on the verge of death several times. Finally, it was time to share the spoils. Just the reward points alone should be enough for their team to level up, right? Chapter 70. After a preliminary inspection, this is indeed the mission target's information. The information has been submitted to the higher-ups for review. The big-breasted girl sighed, but her actions were still quick. If the review passes, your Baby Meng team will become a level 2 team. Please go to the wall over there to see the treatment of a level 2 team. The rest of the rewards will be calculated and distributed this afternoon. Please come and collect them in time. Okay. Xiaoqing was very relaxed physically and mentally. She led her teammates back. The information was quickly handed over to the higher-ups. The head of the base was called Hao Yin. When the news was handed over, he was receiving the higher-ups from the Jiangbei survivor base. As soon as he heard that the information was in his hands, Hao Yin was very happy. Immediately hand it over to the research department to see if it is complete. To be able to find this information in a city occupied by zombies, your base is really full of strong people. The head of the Jiangbei survivor base was called Yin Pingshan. He was a man who looked to be in his late 20s. He looked very gentle and gave off the feeling of a university professor. He had a good temperament. Even if he stood in a group of people, he would still be very eye-catching. However, compared with the man next to him, he was immediately inferior. The man next to him looked a little smaller than him. His skin was exceptionally white. It was so white that it was a little bit morbid. It was as if he had not seen the sun for a long time. His facial features were delicate, but he did not look feminine. His eyebrows were a little sharp. The 3 buttons on his collar were neatly buttoned. His sitting posture was also as straight as a pine tree. His whole person exuded a sense of abstinence. It made people want to tear his clothes and break his calmness. Is it about the research on water purification? The man's voice was also a little cold. It was very clear. It was easy to associate it with the crisp sound of jade beads hitting white porcelain. Hao-yin did not hide anything. He smiled and said, "Yes, that's the information. I originally wanted to wait for my researchers to develop the technology and then announce it to the major survival bases." Yin Pingshan could not help but sneer. When the time came, would he really be willing to announce it? He was afraid that he would only be willing to use this information in exchange for benefits. Although he was well aware of it, Yin Pingshan still complimented him. Major General Hao is really broad-minded. Hao Yin was making excuses over there, and it was really annoying to watch. The man next to her acted as if he didn't know about this. He asked straightforwardly, "Can I see the information?" The atmosphere immediately froze for a moment. After a while, Hao Yin laughed and said, "Of course, but we have to wait for our researchers to verify it. After all, the information has just been brought back, and we don't know if it's complete yet. Anyway, you will be staying at the base for a few days, so there's no rush." He nodded stiffly. After dinner, they returned to their resting area. Yin Pingshan said helplessly, "Shun, what did I tell you before we came? Don't talk." The man thought for a moment and then said with a serious face, "You actually told me not to speak?" Yin Pingshan was so angry that he wanted to laugh. "Do you know that I almost fell out with that narrow-minded Hao Yin today? You even told me not to speak." There was no expression on the man's face, but his eyes flashed with innocence. "You told me not to talk." Yin Pingshan was speechless. "I'm so angry because of you. Sai, forget it. I've already said it. That's it." Yin Pingshan waved his hand helplessly. At this time he didn't have any dignity to speak of. He carefully reminded, "Meng Shin, you must remember. When I don't tell you to speak, you must not speak." The man named Meng Shin nodded, and then sat at the table without speaking. Yin Pingshan couldn't help but walk around. "We must get the information on the water purification. Otherwise, Hao Yin will definitely use it to threaten us in the future and gain some benefits. We can't do anything to Hao Yin. Maybe we can go and see the people who brought the information back? Maybe they have a backup." Meng Shin took a sip of water and looked at him without blinking. Yin Pingshan was in a bad mood. He slammed the table. "Why didn't you say a word when you should have spoken?" Meng Shin looked at the ripples in the cup and said slowly, "You didn't tell me to speak." Yin Pingshan was speechless. "I give up." Meng Shin paused for a moment and then said, "Oh." Yin Pingshan was completely worn out. He muttered to himself, "We should first check which team brought the information back. Then we can contact them in private. No, Hao Yin will be suspicious." Meng Shin slowly put down the teacup and said, "Baby Meng." "Baby Meng? Your cousin? Isn't he dead?" Yin Pingshan was stunned for a moment and didn't react. Meng Shin was also led astray by his thoughts. He said, "The team of ability users is called Baby Meng." Yin Pingshan finally reacted. He rolled his eyes without caring about his image. Why do they have such a name? This team leader must be a woman. Speaking of which, how did you know? When the girl came to deliver the information, I saw them. Baby Meng and Fierce Wind. Meng Shin said honestly. It's easy now that we have a name. Yin Pingshan touched his chin. Next, we have to think about how to get close to them. While they were thinking about how to get close to them, the other side was dividing the loot. All the zombie crystals were poured out and piled up into a small hill 1 meter high. There was even a sharp point. Xiaoqing divided all the crystal stones into 6 piles, 1 for each of them. You can keep them however you want. I heard that zombie nuclei have become the most common currency when I came back. No matter if it's between bases or between ordinary people, these nuclei are almost all used. You can absorb them or spend them. You can do whatever you want with them. No one declined. They all put away their share and went home to eat. In the afternoon, they still had to collect their spoils of war. At that time, it would be time for them to split the loot. Xiaoqing estimated that they would all become millionaires when they returned from this trip. After Yan Hanqing and the others went back to their room, Xiaoqing brought the few brats into the room to eat. In the evening, she would try to absorb some of the level 4 zombie crystal to see if she could break through again. Even if she couldn't break through to level 4, she could at least improve her strength. It would be good for herself and the whole team. Chapter 71. The first day back in the base was the busiest. Sharing the loot took a lot of time. Lin Xiaofeng also sent people to deliver a lot of food and zombie crystals, not to mention other miscellaneous things. Lin Xiaofeng and Cheng Jiao were both badly injured, so they couldn't come over. They sent people to tell Xiaoqing that they owed her a favor, and that if she needed anything, she should tell him. As long as he could do it, he wouldn't refuse. When they were sharing the loot, Gu Panpan still didn't understand. Sister Qing, why did you save him at that time? I don't like the whole team. Panpan, you need to think about the long term. Xiaoqing rubbed Gu Panpan's head. If the Fierce Wind squad had all died there, our squad would really be the ones who stood out when we returned to the base, the kind that would soar into the sky. In the future, no other squad of ability users would dare to team up with us. They would think, if a level 1 ability user squad didn't suffer a single casualty, while a level 3 ability user squad was completely wiped out, then what did this level 1 ability user squad rely on to come back alive? We have the strength. Gu Panpan was very confused. They don't know. Xiaoqing chuckled and said, they will think that we climbed out of the base by stepping on Lin Xiaofeng's dead bodies. Of course, they will be wary of us in the future. Of course, the most important thing is that as the leader of a level 3 squad, Lin Xiaofeng must be filthy rich. You see, if he dies, how much can we take? If he's alive, we can take more. Gu Panpan nodded with starry eyes and said, I understand, Sister Qing. Let's move everything back. Come to my place for dinner tonight. Xiaoqing patted Gu Panpan and prepared to go out to see if there were any fresh vegetables and fruits. She wanted to exchange some for Gu Panpan and the others. After all, the food they ate every day was not fresh after such a long trip outside. It was time to reward everyone's stomachs. The fruits and vegetables grown in the base were very expensive, but they were fresh and tasted good. Xiaoqing and the others were all tycoons now, so they naturally didn't care about such a small amount of crystal stones. However, before going to buy vegetables, Xiaoqing planned to go to the market to see if there were any good military knives that were sharp and easy to use. Xiao Tong would get one for self-defense. In this way, Xiaoqing would be more at ease when she went out in the future. Xiaoqing strolled around the market, but she couldn't find a suitable military knife. In the end, she settled for the next best thing and bought a decent dagger. This dagger was small and exquisite. Xiao Tong could go back and polish it so that it would be convenient for her to carry around. After buying the dagger, she was about to leave. When she turned around, she saw a lot of cosmetics on the stall opposite. She thought that Gu Panpan was at the age where she loved to look beautiful. As for Xiao Tong, she would grow up soon. Should she buy some cosmetics and give them to them? In this day and age, it was already very difficult to survive. Who would still care about cosmetics? Therefore, these things were particularly worthless in the post-apocalyptic world. The total value of the cosmetics in this stall might not even be worth half a kilogram of food. Thinking that it was not expensive anyway, Xiaoqing walked over. As soon as she squatted down, a person squatted down next to her and picked up a small bag with dark seeds in it. How much is this? The stall owner glanced at that person and stretched out 2 fingers. That person nodded and took out 2 level 1 zombie crystals. Xiaoqing couldn't help but facepalm. Which family did this young master come from? It seemed that he was well protected in the post-apocalyptic world. How could he be so stupid? However, she didn't want to remind him. She would be hated for ruining other people's business. Besides, she didn't know this person. Meng Shen gave the crystals to the stall owner. When he picked up the seeds, he was very happy. Most of the seeds were grain crops in the north. They were rarely seen in the south. Now that the post-apocalyptic climate was strange, he wanted to take them back and try planting them. If they could be planted, he could ask the base to buy a lot of seeds back. They would have enough to eat next year. Do you still have such seeds? Yes. Of course. The stall owner was also overjoyed. His family grew these things, and he had left behind countless old seeds. Previously, he had been considering whether he should just eat them as food, but today he had actually gotten himself a sucker for a fool. Now his head was full of 3 words. I'm rich. Can you take them all? If the quantity is not too much, I'll take them all. Meng Shen turned over the seeds and crushed them. After the skin was broken, the white part exposed was very tender. When he pinched it, it felt moist. After paying attention to the soil and temperature, there should be no problem for them to germinate. The only thing to worry about was whether they could bear fruit. If he took more seeds back, he could test it a few more times. Xiaoqing looked at Meng Shen as if she was looking at an idiot. His appearance was not bad, and his voice was also quite nice. It was a pity that there was something wrong with his brain. I'll go back and get them after I'm done. Xiaoqing picked 2 cosmetics and an eyebrow pencil. How much are these? The stall owner was probably addicted to scamming her, so he stretched out 2 fingers. Xiaoqing narrowed her eyes. Did he think that she was also a brainless idiot? How dare he try to scam her? Wasn't he a bit too bold? The stall owner looked at Xiaoqing's murderous eyes and suddenly realized that Xiaoqing was not Meng Shen. She was wearing the paranormal badge of the base. Was he looking for trouble? Even if Xiaoqing didn't do anything to him, she would ruin Meng Shen's business. It was enough for him to cry. He didn't dare to take revenge. So the stall owner hurriedly said, I don't want any crystal stones. How can I take your crystal stones for these things? Just give me something to eat. Xiaoqing gave him half a pack of compressed biscuits. In fact, she also felt that half a pack was too much, but it was too troublesome to open it. After taking the things, Xiaoqing took one last look at Meng Shen. She couldn't help but sigh. How could a good-looking person be retarded? Sure enough, God opened a window for you and closed the door for you. Meng Shen didn't understand why he was being stared at. In the end, he didn't pay much attention to it. He followed the stall owner to get the seeds. The stall owner closed the stall and stopped doing business. He happily took Meng Shen back to get the seeds. Xiaoqing returned home and gave the seeds to Gu Panpan and Xiao Tong. Then she got a kiss from them. Erdai was angry. He pulled Xiao Tong away and pulled Gu Panpan away. He leaned over and kissed Xiaoqing's left cheek and Xiaoqing's right cheek. He was satisfied when he covered the marks left by Gu Panpan and Xiao Tong. Xiaoqing. Chapter 72. After splitting the loot, they went back to their own homes to sleep in satisfaction. On the other side, they had just found some clues. Yan Pingshan flipped through the list again and again, and then muttered with a little doubt. This whatever baby Meng metahuman team doesn't even have a single dead person? I took a look at this name list. There are people in their teens and a few years old. If I didn't know beforehand that they were a team of metahumans, I would have thought that they were more like square dancers. Meng Shen stood at the side and didn't say a word. In the afternoon, he brought back a bunch of seeds, and then he was scolded by Yan Pingshan. This bunch of seeds couldn't even be used on a single zombie crystal nucleus. But Meng Shen had used more than 10 of them. Even if his family was rich, he couldn't afford to lose like this. Yan Pingshan was so angry that he cried out in pain, holding his chest for the entire afternoon. However, Meng Shen just looked at him with an especially innocent gaze, as if he had done something unforgivable. Yan Pingshan was even angrier. He shouldn't have brought Meng Shen out this time. If he didn't bring Meng Shen out, he wouldn't have been angered to death more than 10 times along the way. If he didn't bring Meng Shen out, he might have been a little more clear-headed. If he didn't bring Meng Shen out, he wouldn't have lost so many crystals. In the end, looking at Meng Shen's calm and innocent expression, Yan Pingshan almost couldn't catch his breath and passed out just like that. Fortunately, at this time he found the information about baby Meng and the Fierce Wind metahuman team, which distracted Yan Pingshan's attention. The information was very clear. When they received the mission, Baby Meng's team was just a metahuman team that had been established for less than 24 hours. As for the Fierce Wind metahuman team, it was the oldest and one of the highest-level metahuman teams in this base. But in the end, as a newly formed Level 1 metahuman team, Baby Meng's metahuman team did not lose a single member, not even a single injured member. As for the Gale metahuman team, only the captain and vice-captain were left. One of them was unconscious and the other one was heavily injured. Who would believe that? Yan Pingshan concluded at that time. This team of mutants called Baby Meng is really something. It's definitely not simple. I think it's very likely that they were the ones who found the information. It was unknown when Meng Shen had appeared behind Yan Pingshan. Then he pointed at the information in Yan Pingshan's hands and said, "I know this woman. I saw her today." Yan Pingshan followed his finger and saw that Meng Shen was pointing at Xiao Qing, the leader of Baby Meng Shen's team. His eyes lit up. "You know her?" "I saw her when I went shopping today," Meng Shen said with certainty. Because Xiao Qing was very beautiful, even for someone like him who put all his heart and soul into research, he could not help but take a few more glances at her. At the mention of shopping, Yan Pingshan's face darkened. He decisively stuffed the information into Meng Shen's hands and said, "Since you've seen her, then it's easy. Take the information and take a good look at it. I'll leave the matter of getting close to her to you. And I heard that she's a widow." Meng Shen did not understand what Yan Pingshan was implying at all. When he was holding the information, he was still at a loss. Then Yan Pingshan ran away, leaving him standing there in a daze. After a long time, Meng Shen finally reacted. He opened the information and found the one with Xiao Qing's picture. Then he looked at Xiao Qing's information and slowly said, "Xiao Qing." Xiao Qing sneezed. Then she was surprised that as a zombie, she actually had the prelude to a cold. Then she stuffed her son into Air Dai's arms and began to absorb the Level 4 zombie nucleus. She removed all distracting thoughts from her mind and began to slowly absorb the energy from the zombie nuclei. The energy slowly flowed into her body. She could vaguely feel that after the energy had made a circle in her body, it would all enter her head, which was where the nucleus was located. Usually, when she used her superpower, the energy was released from the nucleus and then flowed around her body. Xiao Qing thought that it was probably because the nucleus absorbed the energy of other nuclei, and then it would slowly fill up. When it reached a certain level, the nucleus would be full, and then it would be upgraded. The nucleus would become bigger, and then it would hold more energy. The process of becoming stronger was to expand the size of the nucleus. The bigger the nucleus, the more energy it could hold, so it would be stronger. At least, it should be like that for superpowered people. As for zombies, they seem to be able to absorb energy from flesh and blood to evolve. Just like the variety of superpowered people, zombies also had different variations. Similarly, both superpowered people and zombies were constantly becoming stronger. Xiao Qing suddenly had an idea. What if she used the absorbed energy to strengthen her body? After all, every time when she was on the verge of upgrading, she would be stuck. There would be a long period of time when she was on the verge of a breakthrough, but she could not break through. At that time, would it be better to use the absorbed energy to strengthen her body? After all, when she was on the verge of a breakthrough, most of the absorbed energy couldn't be contained by the nucleus. It would either be used or scattered, which was very wasteful. Only a small part of it would be used to slowly expand the capacity of the nucleus. This idea went round and round in Xiao Qing's mind, and it kept tempting her. In the end, Xiao Qing decided to give it a try. She didn't use the Level 4 nucleus stone, but took out a Level 1 zombie nucleus stone. She tried to absorb it into her body, but the energy involuntarily circulated in her body, and then it entered the nucleus in her head. Xiao Qing tried several times, but the result was the same. The energy would enter the nucleus by itself. She suddenly felt a little discouraged. She even considered if she should first absorb the Level 4 nucleus stone to see if she could reach the edge of a breakthrough, and then try again. Would it be easier that way? But she gave up, and decided to try a few more times. After absorbing dozens of Level 1 zombie nucleus stones, Xiao Qing had a little grasp of the rhythm. She thought for a moment. When the energy was transferred out of the nucleus, it would be obedient to her, but when it was just absorbed into her body, it was not obedient at all. The reason was very likely that after the energy entered her nucleus, it would be assimilated and then imprinted with her spirit mark. Spirit was an illusory thing. Only psychic paranormals like Xiao Tong could truly control it. Xiaoqing tried again and again, but failed again and again. When the sky was about to turn white, she felt her spirit power for the first time. This was already a big progress. Xiaoqing breathed a sigh of relief. She took out the level 4 nucleus stone and absorbed it for a while, preparing to wait until night to fight again. Chapter 73. By the time Xiaoqing finished packing, it was already dawn. She yawned and prepared to set up her stall. She had harvested too many things in the past 2 days, so it was better to sell them. She would feel more at ease if she exchanged them for zombie nuclei. In addition, she was going to buy some higher-level zombie nuclei. Regardless of whether they came to sell or not, she would still get some. Anyway, she didn't lack food now, and there weren't many people in her family who ate food. She only had Xiao Tong and half a little bun, so she might as well use them to exchange for some nuclei. Xiaoqing first went to find Yan Hanqing and asked Yan Hanqing to take care of her family. Then she went to set up her stall. The good spots in the stall had been taken by others. Xiaoqing didn't mind. She found a corner, set up her stall, and began to absorb the crystals and improve her spiritual power. When it was almost noon, Xiaoqing suddenly noticed that someone stopped in front of her stall. Xiaoqing opened her eyes and found that the person squatting in front of her stall was none other than the stupid rich guy she met yesterday. Xiaoqing immediately perked up, and 4 words immediately appeared in her mind. Too much money makes people stupid. Thinking of this, her expression immediately became much gentler. Is there anything you need? You can take a look. I have quite a lot of things here. Meng Shun was a little embarrassed by Xiaoqing's gentle look. He flipped through the things in the stall, but his mind was thinking about how to strike up a conversation with Xiaoqing. If he suddenly said that he wanted to get to know her, would it make her think that he was a hooligan? What if Xiaoqing rejected him? What if Xiaoqing thought that he wasn't a good person and was wary of him? Meng Shun thought a lot. His hands unconsciously turned over, and then he felt that he had caught something. He looked down and found that he was holding Xiaoqing's foot. Meng Shun. Xiaoqing. Meng Shun quickly loosened his grip. I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I was distracted. Xiaoqing silently withdrew her foot. Her face suddenly changed from gentle to expressionless. Is there anything you like? Meng Shun saw the look on her face that said, if you don't have it, hurry up and leave. He really wanted to apologize, but after thinking for a long time, he picked up something and said, yes. He didn't know why, but when he was in front of Xiaoqing, he was obviously sharp-tongued and knew how to talk, but when he was in front of Xiaoqing, he couldn't wait to spit out word by word. The moment he picked it up, Meng Shun regretted it, because it was an unopened pack of sanitary pads. Xiaoqing's heart collapsed. She had met a pervert. Actually, Meng Shun was here to flirt with her, right? Meng Shun subconsciously loosened his grip, but in the next second he took the thing back and said in a very sincere tone, I bought it for my friend. Xiaoqing silently stretched out a finger. Meng Shun took out a crystal and gave it to Xiaoqing. Sure enough, in his mind, crystals were like steel bulbs. They were priced at the same time. Xiaoqing, who originally wanted to chase him away, silently restrained herself. However, in her heart, she had already equated Meng Shun with a pervert. Meng Shun picked a few more things that he was really interested in. Then he tried to chat with Xiaoqing. Your name is Xiaoqing, right? It's a very nice name. Xiaoqing smiled slightly, but in her heart she thought, damn, he is really a pervert. He actually investigated my name. Meng Shun said again, my name is Meng Shun, not Meng Shun. Meng is Meng and Shun is Shun. Xiaoqing, who didn't want to know his name, smiled slightly. Meng Shun was a little dispirited. He had lived in the laboratory for a long time. Although his IQ was high, his EQ was extremely low. He was the worst at dealing with people. Seeing that Xiaoqing obviously didn't want to communicate with him, Meng Shun couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Fortunately, he was a very tenacious person. Soon he cheered up. I saw your badge. Are you also a psychic? Xiaoqing nodded. I'm a wood psychic. Mengshen dryly tried to find a topic. What a coincidence. I'm a spirit psychic. Xiaoqing couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. If it was another psychic, she might really not want to talk to Mengshen. Unfortunately, Mengshen was a spirit psychic. Xiaotong was also a spiritual-type metahuman, and spiritual-type metahumans were as rare as lightning-type metahumans. Xiaoqing didn't have anything to help Xiaotong, but now she had met another spiritual-type metahuman. Xiaoqing, who had been cold, immediately became interested. You're a spirit psychic? Yes. Mengshen smiled slightly. He had relatively few expressions and smiles, but when he smiled he was particularly good-looking. His whole face glowed with a very attractive brilliance. Especially his slightly curved phoenix eyes. Even Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment. But soon, Mengshen's smile disappeared, and he returned to his serious and somewhat abstinent appearance. Xiaoqing couldn't help but say, I have a companion who's also a spirit psychic. What a coincidence. Mengshen was also interested. There are very few spirit psychics. It's fate to meet one. Spirit psychics aren't easy to grasp and control. It's one of the more difficult types of psychics. I seem to have said a lot of nonsense. No, I like to hear it. Do you have any tricks? Xiaoqing smiled gently. Mengshen immediately felt that he seemed to have a chance to strike up a conversation with Xiaoqing. He hurriedly revealed the way he practiced his spirit power. I often use my spirit power to try to pick up some things. At first, I start with small things like bowls and chopsticks. Then I slowly try to pick up bigger things. It's very useful for the growth of spirit power. Thank you. Xiaoqing wrote it down and returned a smile. Then she got some information about spirit power from Mengshen. For example, spirit power was very strong, but at the same time, it was also very fragile. Once overdrawn or seriously injured, it was easy to become mentally retarded. Therefore, when spirit psychics were relatively weak, they had to be protected as much as possible. When they grew to a certain level, they would be somewhat safe. If spirit psychics grew up, they would be very scary. They could kill people and zombies without leaving a trace. When she was almost done, Xiaoqing's face changed. Do you have anything else to buy? Mengshen looked at the pile of things in his hand, and then looked at the things on the stall. He silently shook his head. Then he heard Xiaoqing say coldly, Then why don't you leave? Mengshen's heart broke at that moment. No matter how much he said, it couldn't change his image in Xiaoqing's mind, a pervert. Chapter 74. Mengshen went back gloomily. Yan Pingshen had been waiting for him for a long time. When he saw him, he hurriedly asked, How was it? Did you get anything? Mengshen put a pile of things on the ground, then said with a serious face, Her name is Xiaoqing. And then, Yan Pingshen waited for a long time, then saw that Mengshen was still looking at him with a serious face, but didn't want to continue. Mengshen pointed at the pile of things on the ground, then sat down to drink water. Yan Pingshen was speechless. That is to say, you went out and found out her name, and we knew it long ago. Why did you bring back a pile of junk? Tell me, how many crystal stones did you spend? Yan Pingshen was prepared, but he was still surprised when Mengshen pointed at him. What? 5 crystal stones. You spent 5 crystal stones on this pile of junk. Mengshen said innocently, No, I didn't spend 5. Then when Yan Pingshen let out a sigh of relief, he said calmly, It's 50. Yan Pingshen sat down on the ground. At that moment, he almost burst into tears. 50 crystal stones. He took the team of paranormals all the way from Jiangbei Survivor Base to S-City Survivor Base. How many crystal stones did he get? 50 crystal stones. What kind of wastrel was this? He couldn't take it out and beat him to death. Could he? You spent 50 crystal stones and found out her name? Yan Pingshen asked with a trembling voice. Mengshen looked at Yan Pingshen sitting on the ground, trembling. He couldn't bear it. He thought carefully, then said, She has a companion who is a psychic paranormal. Yan Pingshen propped himself up from the chair, and sat down dispiritedly. Did you talk about anything else? Like being friends or something? Mengshan shook his head, then said with a slightly livelier tone. I made an appointment with her tomorrow. She didn't refuse. No one would refuse a sucker who came to their door. Yan Pengshan trembled and covered his heart, then said to himself, last night, how Yin treated me, why didn't I eat more? At least make up for the loss. Mengshan didn't listen to Yan Pengshan's nagging. He was thinking about his own plan. I think if I talk to her a few more times, we should get familiar. I can feel that she is a very cautious girl, but she is a good person. She is a good girl. Why would she cheat you so many crystal stones if she is a good person? Wake up, young man. She just thinks that you're a fool with a lot of money and are easy to trick. However, Yan Pengshan didn't want to discourage Mengshan. He organized his words then said, in that case, you can talk to her tomorrow, but don't bring too many crystal stones tomorrow. Promise me, okay? Mengshan nodded, then carried the pile of things into his room. He found a notebook and began to write down the tips of training psychic paranormal. His intuition told him that he could make her like him. Xiaoqing didn't manage to get more than a few high-grade zombie nuclei in one day. After all superpowered people needed to absorb zombie nuclei to evolve, and not many of them would be stupid enough to sell their nuclei. However, she sold a lot of things. Coupled with the income provided by Mengshan, the spendthrift, today was not a bad day. In the afternoon, she packed up and went back early. She and her friends seemed to have formed a tacit understanding that although they lived separately, they would eat together. After all, Yan Hanqing and Xiaoqing's culinary skills weren't bad. Much better than Gu Panpan and her sister. Therefore, the two of them would always come over to freeload every meal. Moreover, every time they split the spoils, they would consciously leave behind a portion of the food as their rations, and leave it with Xiaoqing. The reward for this mission was very rich. They didn't need to do any missions in a short time. They only needed to rest and cultivate. The more their abilities improved, the safer their next mission would be. Before most of her friends broke through to level 3, Xiaoqing didn't want to go on any big missions. At most, they would take on some simple missions. A moderate amount of fighting was also good for them. However, after the last mission, the higher-ups seemed to value Xiaoqing and the rest more. There was also a level 3 paranormals team called Qiyan. They found Xiaoqing and wanted to talk to Xiaoqing about merging Baby Meng into Qiyan. They were directly rejected by Xiaoqing. After dinner, Xiaoqing called Xiaotong over and taught Xiaotong all the knowledge she learned from Mengshan in the day. Xiaotong was mute, but she wasn't stupid. On the contrary, she was actually very smart. It was just that she was injured too much previously, which caused her to be a little slow. After her ability evolved, she was also slowly recovering. After Xiaoqing explained those things to her, she quickly understood and deduced many things from one example. After Xiaotong obtained a new method to train her mental strength, she didn't stop. She kept using her mental strength to lift this and that. Xiaotong actually yearned to become stronger. She didn't want to be protected under Xiaoqing's wings. She hoped that she could help Xiaoqing, even if it was just a little. However, Xiaotong was still relatively weak after all. Soon, her spiritual power was almost exhausted. At this time, she could feel that from the strange crystal hanging around her neck, there was a cool aura slowly entering her body, restoring her spiritual power. On the other side, Xiaoqing also returned to her room. After absorbing the crystal for a while, she suddenly had an idea. Xiaotong and Mengshan were both psychic paranormals, so they could lift something with their mental strength. But she also had spiritual power. Didn't this mean that in fact, everyone had the potential to become a psychic? It was just that some people had more spiritual power, while others had less. Those who had more spiritual power had a higher chance of becoming a psychic when they awakened their psychic abilities. If she also trained her mental strength, would she develop a second ability in the future? Xiaoqing was a person who liked to do things immediately. She closed her eyes and meditated for a long time, slowly mobilizing the mental strength that she had spent a long time to feel. Then she slowly tried to mobilize this mental strength. If Xiaotong's mental strength was a lake, then hers was only a basin of water. Needless to say, the gap between them was naturally obvious. However, under Xiaoqing's control, the crystal in her hand really slowly floated up. However, it only lasted for a few seconds, and then the crystal fell back into Xiaoqing's palm. Even with Xiaoqing's physique, she felt as if she was covered in cold sweat, and her head was faintly aching like being pricked by needles. This was the feeling of overdrawing one's mental strength. She suddenly felt very sorry for Xiao Tong. Just overdrawing one's mental strength was already so uncomfortable. How painful would it be for Xiao Tong to be injured many times? However, Xiaoqing didn't think too much about it. Because of the overdraft of her mental strength, she lay on the bed and soon fell asleep. Chapter 75. The next day, when Xiaoqing went out to set up her stall, she saw Mengshen again. He gave Xiaoqing a booklet. Xiaoqing flipped through it and asked, "What's this?" "My experience on spiritual power cultivation." Mengshen smiled and said, "I organized it into a booklet last night. You can take it back and show it to your companions." "Thank you." Xiaoqing paused for a moment. She didn't know how to react. She originally thought that Mengshen was a stupid, rich, and strange pervert. However, Mengshen's behavior made her feel a little embarrassed. "I like your character very much. I want to be friends with you." "You don't have to thank your friends." Mengshen quickly recalled the booklet Yin Pingshen gave him before he came here. His memory was very good. He memorized that long booklet in a short while. What a strange person. Xiaoqing silently changed the label of Mengshen from a stupid, rich pervert to a strange pervert. Then, from a strange pervert to a pervert that she could probably get in touch with. Mengshen said dryly, "There's one more thing. I came from Jiangbei Survivor Base. We're about to return to Jiangbei Survivor Base. I want to invite you. Do you have a team of ability users?" Xiaoqing nodded and said, "My team is just a level 2 ability user team. Moreover, it's just formed not long ago. You'd better think about what you want to invite us to do first. It's like this. Many of the guards who escorted us here were injured along the way. It might be a little difficult for them to escort us back. Therefore, I want to invite your team to escort us back. You can treat it as a mission. I'll pay you according to the usual mission of the same level." Mengshen said carefully, "I can also pay you half of the reward before the mission. The other half will be paid when we arrive at the destination. How about it?" Xiaoqing didn't agree rashly. Instead, she asked, "Why did you choose our team? I believe that you should have investigated in advance. In S-City's Survivor Base, there are many powerful ability user teams. There are even 3 level 3 ability user teams. We're just a newly formed level 2 ability user team. If a normal person were to make a choice, they would choose from the 3 level 3 ability user teams, right? You're very cautious." He was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, which covered the sharpness of his eyes and softened his aura. "That's right. I did my research beforehand. My initial choice was one of the 3 level 3 ability user teams. Later, you brought your team and the Storm team back. The Storm team was considered one of the more experienced and powerful ability user teams in your base. However, they were almost completely annihilated, and none of you were missing. Don't talk to me about luck. I don't believe in that. In my opinion, even luck is a part of strength. There's more." Xiaoqing looked at Mengshen calmly. Perhaps it was because Mengshen had been trying to wash away his bad image in Xiaoqing's mind, but he had failed. What he said just now changed Xiaoqing's impression of him. He was insightful, attentive, observant, and analytical. If he was strong, he would be rational when he needed to be. He would be a good friend. Mengshen continued, "I have analyzed your operation in detail. It is very difficult to not lose a single person. The requirements for a team leader are also very high. You need to have enough foresight, rationality, decisiveness, and a certain amount of luck. Of course, you must have enough strength and teamwork. I have tried to bring in several top Esper teams from our base, but I found that none of them could guarantee that they could complete the mission without losing a single person. So I chose you. Is this reason enough?" Mengshen was very smart. He chose to say 80% of the truth and 20% of the lies. This way, it was much harder to expose than a pure lie. Xiaoqing shook her head. Even if I believe that you are sincerely inviting our team, I can't agree. Why? Mengshen frowned. We can discuss the reward. As you said before, I have enough foresight, rationality, and decisiveness. It is because of this that I choose to refuse. A wise person should learn to give up appropriately. This mission is very difficult. I can't guarantee that I won't lose any of my teammates because of this mission. This is the main reason why I refuse. Xiaoqing was very calm. My team is different from others. All my teammates are my family and the closest people to me. I can't accept losing even one of them. Mengshen was anxious. Your thinking is very wrong. Do you want to choose a mission that is not dangerous at all in the future? All the paranormals break through their limits in danger, and then progress little by little. You are protecting them like this, and also preventing them from becoming strong. Xiaoqing didn't explain anything. She just said lightly, I am a very strong person, so I must protect everyone under my wings. You may think that my decision is not good for their future, but I think that I don't need them to be strong and unstoppable. I just want them to live safely and healthfully until the end of the world. Or until the end of the world. Mengshen took a deep breath and couldn't help but say, what if one day, even you can't protect them? If there comes a day when I am unable to protect them, it will definitely be because of my death. Before I die, I will make proper arrangements for everyone. If they are about to be humiliated, I will take the first step and kill them. We will die together. Xiaoqing curled her lips and said with a smile that was not a smile. Mengshen opened his eyes wide. He had never seen someone like Xiaoqing. You are simply unreasonable. Xiaoqing smiled. Thank you for the compliment. Chapter 76. Yan Hanqing walked out of the kitchen with a big pot of chicken soup. He had a complicated look in his eyes. I stewed chicken for Xiaotong and the others. Do you want to drink some? The chicken soup should be able to absorb the energy. Xiaoqing shook her head. All the food is useless to me. I have to spit it out after drinking it. It's too troublesome. You guys eat. I'll absorb the crystal stone for a while. When Xiaoqing was about to go in to absorb the crystal stone, Dai wanted to follow her. Then Little Bun grabbed the corner of her clothes. When Xiaoqing closed the door, she saw Little Bun was still scratching Dai. Xiaoqing sighed again. She felt that she had sighed away all the anger in her life in the past 2 days. When she sat down to absorb the crystal stone, Xiaoqing was shocked. She was embarrassed and focused all her attention on the outside world. She didn't realize that she was only 1 step away from level 4. What did she do? How did it rise to almost level 4 in just one night? It was as if she had eaten a miracle pill. She inevitably thought of the discordant things last night. After calming down, Xiaoqing put aside those shameful things and began to think about it. To study this, she had to start from the source. First of all, why did Dai suddenly become like that? Although Dai was different from ordinary zombies, they had their own consciousness and intelligence. However, their bodies were similar to ordinary zombies. At least in that aspect, they were similar. If there wasn't any special reason, why did he suddenly become like that? This wasn't scientific. Xiaoqing thought carefully. She realized that she had only seen one zombie that was different in this aspect. It was the one that humiliated Cheng Jiao, and was later cut into cucumber sauce. Thinking of this, Xiaoqing was suddenly enlightened. Because yesterday she was still puzzled. She clearly remembered that she had an advanced zombie crystal stone, but she couldn't find it. It was very likely that she had given it to Dai by accident. Dai absorbed it without knowing, and that was why last night's incident happened. That was the only possibility. Otherwise, how could Dai suddenly become like that? Then what happened next was easy to deduce. It was very likely that this crystal caused some kind of mutation in Dai, and then he became like that. After she and Dai did that kind of thing, the energy of the crystal went through some kind of transformation, and a part of it entered her body. That zombie should be level 4, which meant that she and Dai shared a level 4 zombie crystal, and some unspeakable energy, which led her to almost reach level 4. This was the most likely possibility. No matter what had happened was in the past. People had to look forward. At least the increase in strength now was a consolation. Xiaoqing used up a lot of energy last night, and it was time for her to replenish her energy. She took out the remaining level 4 zombie crystal stone, and then began to absorb it. Probably because she used up too much energy last night. When Xiaoqing woke up, the level 4 zombie crystal was almost completely absorbed by her. Xiaoqing could also clearly feel that she was just a little bit away from breaking through. She decided to break through in one go. Soon, the level 4 zombie crystal was completely absorbed by her. Then, Xiaoqing took out a few level 3 zombie crystals, and absorbed them all in one go. The energy converged into a flood in her body. Xiaoqing tried to use the method that Mengshan taught her. She used her spiritual power to guide the energy into the nucleus in her brain. Boom! At that moment, Xiaoqing felt that her mind was like an explosion of fireworks, and then it went blank. After a long time of calmness, Xiaoqing woke up. Chapter 77. Xiaoqing could clearly feel the energy full of vitality flowing out of her crystal nucleus, rushing to her limbs and bones. Wherever the energy passed, her meridians, blood vessels, and muscles seemed to be recovering. At that moment, Xiaoqing firmly believed that as long as she kept leveling up, her body would become like a normal human one day. This was not the thing that made her happiest. What made her happiest was that little Bun would have a chance to become a normal person in the future. Wasn't this what she had been pursuing? After calming down, Xiaoqing went out. It was almost afternoon, but Gu Panpan and the others were sitting on the sofa. As soon as they saw Xiaoqing come out, Dai came over, followed by Gu Panpan. "Sister, you finally came out. What's wrong?" Xiaoqing tore Dai off her body. Although Dai used to like to stick to her, Xiaoqing didn't feel guilty at that time. Now that something really happened, Xiaoqing felt guilty. As soon as Dai stuck to her, she tore it off. Dai felt very wronged, but she didn't dare to say anything. Gu Panpan didn't care about this little detail. She just said, "It's like this. Just now, the base sent someone over, saying that they want our team to represent the S-City Survivor Base, and escort those people from Jiangbei Survivor Base back." Xiaoqing couldn't help but frown. First it was Mengshan, and now it was Yan Pingshan. They couldn't persuade her, but now they wanted to use force? "Did you tell the base that we don't intend to do any missions recently?" Gu Panpan said. "I told you. When we thought about it, we felt that something wasn't right. There are so many teams of ability users in the base, so why did they pick us?" I politely refused. Then that person said that this mission was mandatory, and that we had to complete it. However, the reward for the mission was also very generous. Xiaoqing was a little angry. She didn't know what kind of conspiracy Mengshan and the others had in mind when they tried to force them to take this mission, but it was definitely not a good thing. She wouldn't have stepped into this kind of trap, but someone forced her to step into it. Who would be happy? Did they say anything else? Xiaoqing asked coldly. They did. They said that we're representing the base, and that we should be friendly to them along the way, and show them the strength of our base appropriately. They said that they'll pay us half of the reward first, and then give us the other half after we send them over. Gu Panpan huffed. Who cares about their reward? Xiaoqing also had a headache. She sat down and told Gu Panpan and the others what had happened before. Finally, she concluded, we still want to live in this base, so we can't offend the base. So we have to take this mission. But there is definitely a conspiracy behind it. Everyone should be careful when the time comes. I hope nothing bad will happen. While the entire team of mutants was on high alert, Yan Pingxing was a little drunk. He reclined on the chair and grumbled to Meng Shen. That Hao Yin is so greedy. He might have already noticed that we've designated Baby Meng as the mutant team. He'll definitely send a second team to keep an eye on us. We'll have to depend on you then. Meng Shen was expressionless. Why rely on me? Aren't you close to that? Xiaoqing? I saw you lying there in the middle of the night writing love letters to her. You didn't want to do it when I asked you to. Yan Pingsheng rolled his eyes and didn't care about his image at all. Actually, you must be very happy deep down. Widows and whatnot are the most interesting things. I always thought that you were frigid, but now I know that you're actually horny on the inside. Chapter 78. Get lost. Meng Shen glared at Yan Pingsheng coldly. He didn't explain what he had stayed up all night to write. When he thought of this, he felt a little sad. He had written until midnight before his expression looked slightly better. Yan Pingsheng muttered a few more words before saying, "You're lying. I'm going to sleep first." Meng Shen tugged at his collar. He couldn't help but think of Xiaoqing. She was the most unique woman he had ever seen. The next day, Yan Pingsheng went directly to Xiaoqing's place to discuss the upcoming mission. When he arrived, it happened to be dinner time at Xiaoqing's place. Yan Hanqing had just finished cooking, and Gu Panpan and the others were walking out of the kitchen, each carrying a plate. A rich aroma wafted through the air. Yan Pingsheng's nose twitched, and his eyes were glued to the dishes on the table. They seemed delicious. "I just finished cooking. Do you want to eat together?" Xiaoqing smiled slightly and said politely. Yan Pingsheng felt that he should decline first to show that he was reserved. Then, when Xiaoqing invited him again, he could pretend that he reluctantly agreed because of Xiaoqing's hospitality. That would make him look more dignified. Thus, Yan Pingsheng waved his hand and said, "How can I accept that? I've already eaten. You guys can eat." Xiaoqing nodded and said, "Then we'll eat first. I'll go get you a glass of water." Yan Pingsheng was speechless. This wasn't the script. He looked at the plain water in front of him, and then at the family eating happily. If he could turn back time, Yan Pingsheng would definitely go back to just a moment ago and then shamelessly say, "That's great. It just so happens that I haven't eaten either." This was probably what it meant to be unsuccessfully pretentious. While Yan Hanqing and the others were eating, Xiaoqing walked over to Yan Pingsheng with a glass of water. "May I know what brings you here?" Yan Pingsheng collected his thoughts and said seriously, "Of course, I want to talk to you about the next escort mission. I have to apologize to you first. I mentioned to S-City Base that we were short of manpower and wanted to borrow some people from S-City Survivor Base. Then I mentioned you guys by the way. I didn't talk to you in advance and rashly proposed to choose you guys. It's my fault, please forgive me." Xiaoqing's heart was naturally full of anger, but she couldn't show it on the surface. That was why she deliberately made Yan Pingsheng suffer in these small matters. She said lightly, "It's our honor to have you take a fancy to our team. I don't know when we will set off, and what kind of mission will we have. We will start the return journey tomorrow afternoon. You don't need to do too much. Just protect us along the way." Yan Pingsheng quickly took out a small bag and poured the things inside on the table. "This is the promised reward. I will send the other part in the afternoon." On the table were the 10 level 3 zombie nuclei that Yan Pingsheng had promised before. These nuclei were placed on the table, which slightly reduced Xiaoqing's anger. She glanced at them and nodded. "Will we meet at the square tomorrow afternoon? We will be there on time." "Yes, 1 o'clock. Yan Pingsheng forced himself not to look at the table, but the smell of the food seemed to be against him, constantly drilling into his nose. Yan Hanqing's cooking was not for show. The smell made Yan Pingsheng's mouth almost drool, but he had to pretend to be calm. "Is there anything else?" Xiaoqing's meaning was very clear. If there was nothing else, he should leave. Don't delay their meal. Chapter 79. Hearing that, Yan Pingsheng didn't want to stay any longer, so he got up and said, "I don't have anything else to say. I'll go back now. I won't disturb you guys from eating." Xiaoqing didn't even want to see him off. She just watched him leave alone. After Yan Pingsheng left, Xiaoqing picked up the zombie nuclei one by one and checked them with her weak spirit power. Every zombie nucleus was full of energy, so it wasn't fake. "Everyone hurry up and eat. Once we're done, I'll divide these zombie crystal nuclei. Let's work hard tonight, and try to have a few level 3 superpowered people by tomorrow's mission," Xiaoqing said while checking if there were any zombie crystal nuclei that had undergone special evolution. The few people over there finished their meal in silence. Then, Yan Hanqing was responsible for cleaning up the dishes, and the others sat over. Now Gu Panpan and Gu Chuan were both at the peak of level 2. They were only one step away from level 3. After absorbing level 3 zombie nuclei, the possibility of them breaking through was very high. Although Yan Hanqing got his superpower late, he had also reached level 2. He was only a little bit weaker than Gu Chuan and his sister, so the possibility of him breaking through was also very high. Dumbo 2. Ahem, after experiencing the relatively peaceful thing last night, he was now at level 3. Xiaotong's superpower was the rarest. She was also the weakest one among them. In addition, spirit power didn't evolve purely by absorbing energy, so the possibility of her breaking through was slightly smaller. Even Little Bun had reached level 2 with the support of snacks, every day and night. However, Little Bun didn't have any attack power, so his fighting power was almost negligible. After thinking about it, Xiaoqing gave Air Dai a level 3 zombie nucleus to consolidate his realm after absorbing it. Then she gave Gu Panpan too. Gu Panpan was a super-powered person with strength and body, so it was easy for her to evolve. 2 nuclei should be enough for her to reach level 3. He then gave Xiaotong another piece and told her to absorb it and accumulate energy. If Xiaotong wanted to break through, the key was still the strange crystal core hanging around her neck. Gu Chuan and Yan Hanqing each got 3 nuclei. Xiaoqing told them not to save any crystals. Zombie nuclei were meant to be absorbed. She told them to be sure to reach level 3 before tomorrow. This way, when everyone went out on a mission together, they would be more secure. 10 crystals were distributed like this. Then the group was driven away by Xiaoqing for closed-door training. After they all left, Little Bun crawled up to Xiaoqing's lap. He stared at Xiaoqing with his big round eyes and asked, "Is Dai Dai my new daddy?" Xiaoqing almost couldn't hold it in, and stood up from the sofa. She choked and stared with her eyes wide open. "Baby, what did you say?" Little Bun hugged Xiaoqing's waist with grievance and whispered, "Mama's whole body is full of Dai Dai's smell. Mama also sleeps with Dai Dai." Xiaoqing's face was as red as a monkey's butt. Being told by her own son like this was simply shameful play. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Little Bun lay in Xiaoqing's arms and stuck out his little butt. He said with a sobbing voice, "The book said that if there is a stepfather, there will be a stepmother. Then Mama will give birth to a baby and don't want me anymore. Is it true?" Xiaoqing immediately felt distressed. She picked up Little Bun and kissed his face. "Baby, I won't have a second baby in my life. You are my one and only. I don't want anyone but you." The Little Bun pouted and reached out to wrap his arms around Xiaoqing's neck, whispering, "But Mama doesn't like Bao Bao anymore. Mama is so busy and doesn't sleep with Bao Bao anymore. I sleep with Tong Tong and play with Tong Tong. Mama doesn't talk to me much either." You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.